Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of incredible racing action in the one and only Race by Wire Porsche Cup Season 1, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and proudly sponsored by none other than Energise Virtual Solutions. We're here today to kick off the second half of the season, and remaining in Italy after what was an absolutely fast and frantic round of racing last time out at the Monza Grand Prix circuit. Well, we've made our way to a circuit that's not too far away, just a bit southeastward by the best part of 3 hours, and a circuit that arguably once was just as quick as the Monza Grand Prix circuit. We have made our way to Imola on 9 in full as the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, named after both son of what is Enzo Ferrari, that being Dino of course, who passed away before his father, and then the name was updated to include the legend himself, Enzo Ferrari. A circuit that when it originally opened all those many years ago, to the best part of 75 years, it was focused on a high speed, sweeping bends and very long straights, and no chicanes as well. And you could say it was the inverse of Monza when it came to a corner types, but it was like Monza with regards to how quick our drivers could make their way around it. However, it has aggressively been neutered down as a result of safety concerns and also drama over the years, including none other than the very dramatic race weekend in the Formula 1 1994 Grand Prix here at Imola, where unfortunately we did see the passing of both Roland Ratzenberger and also Ayrton Senna. But it has also been a circuit of many a huge major moment in motorsport, including one of the very first wins for Fernando Alonso on his way to taking one of his first titles with Renault in his battles with Michael Schumacher. As the circuit's been neutered down, it has seen the introduction of corner sequences and particularly chicanes and the shortening of its straight, which means now the top speeds are no longer as high, and also the high-speed bends that once dominated the circuit, they no longer are here, and instead they've been replaced by some infamous corner sequences, the chicanes in particular, which really keep our drivers on their toes. I mean, around here it is going to be just as much a technical test as it is going to be a test about straight-line speed. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune into round number 6 of the championship today, available only on YouTube at youtube.com, and search for Race by Wire RBW, and you can be catching all the racing action on a weekly basis there as we continue to grow throughout the whole of 2026. Now, if you are in the YouTube chat right now and you have the ability to say hi, don't be shy, feel free to say hi, because we don't bite here at Race by Wire. The only biting you're going to be seeing will be the bite on the brakes and the ABS and potential lockups for our drivers in their Porsche Cup cars. And in the content review, you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds over every round of racing, including tonight. And speaking of which, here is our schedule. In Greenwich Mean Time, that is, in terms of times, GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC. And what we can see in approximately 13 minutes time, we'll be going into our qualifying session, 10 minutes in duration, all drivers out there on a circuit of their own in which to try and deliver their best possible lap, after which we make our way to the grid for our first of our 2 races. The 12-minute sprint begins at 10 past 8. We'll see our drivers have a fast and furious race, and then we take a brief breather before returning at approximately 25 past 8 to the grid, and that will be for the 30-minute feature. 2.5 times the time duration, 2.5 times the race length. No expectation on strategy other than get to the front and take victory, but of course the much longer race always has the element of tyre preservation and also making sure you've taken the right fuel in the first place. You don't want to be caught out by having to make a late pit stop. But as we get set and ready to go, well, of course, we need to give you a recap of the story so far and what stories could be lying in wait today. So as we recap the championship campaign, we started off all the way back on the 17th of December with round number 1 at Miami International Autodrome. Then we had our Christmas break for a couple of weeks before returning for round number 2 on the 7th of January at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache in Brazil. Then we made our way to France for the Circuit Test 24 Hours de Mons and did all the rounds on a weekly basis after round number 2. And well, what a set of races we had at Le Mans, no doubt about it. In regards to the slipstream strategies proving absolutely critical, but then we narrowed things back down when it came to the amount of racing room when we made our way to the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta for round number 4 on the 21st of January. And then it was from the rise and falls of the ultimate rollercoaster ride of road racing to our journey into Italy. And last time out in round number 5 on the 28th of January of the Autodromo Internazionale Monza, well, what exactly did we get to see there? Well, in the gold class, what we got to see was one man in particular be right back on top form. It was none other than Oscar Berntsson had a perfect day when it came to score, with pole position and the win in both races. However, when we interviewed him after the races, interestingly, he was not happy with his performance, particularly his mistakes in the sprint race where the pressure was put on him by none other than his rivals, including what was Kim Andre Bjørklund and also none other than Matt Strand. And that rivalry and indeed the pressure put on him there forced him into a couple of unexpected errors, and it was those errors in particular that saw him lose out quite significantly. However, he didn't lose those points. He did bring home that win. He was able to survive, and meanwhile in the feature race it was a stronger run, but it was Patrick Falcon, of course, who kept him honest most in the sprint race there. there, and the DCW Racing driver really at the core of why Oscar Berntsson was making those mistakes. But of course, whilst he may have led the way in the gold class, in the silver class meanwhile, it was no much nearer straightforward. Because of the fact in silver in the first race, it was Imola who absolutely dominated the qualifying session on home soil, the Italian hero, and well, in the end, she took class pole and overall second place. However, when we then made our way into the race, it was a smart race from Imola who just gradually prioritised the silver win over overall positions and let the gold drive streak on by. And it was very different, meanwhile, in the feature race, where Aaron Herbert returns to the top once again. The man who we've definitely been keeping an eye on for the last couple of rounds, whereby his performances have been going stronger and stronger each and every round. And he's definitely moving himself very much into contention for the Silver Class Championship. And was a brilliant four-way fight in the early stages between himself, Andy Jones, Glenn Gondoliers, and Chris Cole for the overall win, with a mixture of silver and gold drivers there. And in the end, Aaron Herbert refused to give in, even when we did see both what was Oscar Berntsson and Matt Strand start to make their way past him. He continued to push, poke and probe, but in the end he did have to settle for what was in the end rounding off the overall podium and also taking that silver win, which of course in the end is always the priority. But as we come into this round then, well, what stories can we expect here today? Because after today we make our way back to the US of A for what will be our final 2 rounds in the country, and Daytona is next up on the 11th of February there at the road course of the International Speedway. Well, in terms of the standings, because we told you who were the winners last time out, but who exactly has won in terms of points? We come to the Gold Drivers' Championship standings firstly, and as we can see, Oscar Berntsson, the Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing driver, he is definitely pulling away at the moment, and the gap is growing gradually, and nobody seems to be able to slow him down with a 26-point lead advantage. However, he is going to be missing the next round at Daytona. He's admitted that already, so therefore he knows the pressure is on here today to try and take another perfect score, make it a third perfect score of the season, and if he is able to do so, he will give himself the comfort factor that whilst he will be dropping round number 7 in a week's time, it's going to be a drop that's a comfortable one. Matt Strand leads the chase. However, he's got a problem arising, and that's because Kim Andre Bjørklund, who didn't quite score as well as perhaps he wanted to last time out, particularly with the misery that came to him in the sprint race, which held him back to a degree when he went to the feature race grid, well, the Sim Racing Norway driver is only 3 points behind, and you would argue that perhaps now the bigger question is who's fighting for second place here, rather than who's chasing down the leader at this time, because unless Berntsson has a difficult day at the office, as long as he matches the points achievements of his rivals, nobody's really going to be able to catch him now as we head towards the end of the season. Richard Simnor is a further 22 points behind for DCW Racing Blue, and he has started to pull away from the rest of the field, and he is closing on that top 3 as quickly as he can. However, last time it didn't quite work out, and therefore he's had to reset and get going once again, because we have seen him lose some key points. In fact, it was his weakest score of the season last time out, and he won't be wanting to repeat that today. Josh Boot for Atomic Esports, you can always count on him to deliver some absolutely feisty action. He wasn't quite able to take the wins last time out, but he definitely put himself right up there, and now he's on 118 points for season best performance. And then we do have Andy Jones in 6th place there for DCW Racing Blue. He's a further 12 behind, but he is comfortably ahead by 25 points over Mikey Pollard for Film BIL.NO. And the Ferrell Sport Racing driver right now will not achieve any points last time out. He's going to have to get things moving very quickly if he wants to try and close it down that top 5. He's at a Patrick Falconer, or Paddy Falconer as he's known to friends, and the DCW Racing Blue driver there 10 points further adrift, but only 1 point ahead of Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport, who I do believe we may be seeing here again today, hopefully. And well, Newman always a quick driver, of course, and always getting stuck right into the thick of the action. Nick Clemens completes the top 10 for iRace Esports, not picking up any points last time out. Indeed, we were missing a couple of gold drives at Monza, but he's still ahead of Daniel Shilcott by a single point, with the Tactics of Racing driver as well, missing what was Monza. And then we do have Simon Bamber there in 12th place, ahead of Ryan Davies, with Jack Atkinson and Gavin Petty completing the top 15. Next, Casper Turnstead, Andy Archer, and Helder Gonzalez, who complete the Gold Drivers' Championship standings. Coming to the Silver class, meanwhile, and here we can see the picture is nowhere near as clear at the very top. Glenn Gondoliers has returned to the top. He's made a Mentor Road Atlanta, and indeed almost picked up a perfect score, if not for the pesky intervention of Aaron Herbert and Emma Ryu. And well, right now it is looking as though it's anybody's game at the very top of the Silver Class Championship, particularly for our top 4 who are separated by only 9 points. Adam Klamvik is the man who sits in second for Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing, and whereas for Gondoliers it went much better compared to Road Atlanta, conversely for Klamvik it wasn't as strong compared to Road Atlanta, but he did secure the important points. Now, Drive Lounge Racing's Aaron Herbert there, he's listed as Drive Lounge Racing because that was the team he was registered with in the previous round. He has actually changed teams coming into this round, and you'll see that updated next time out on the standings as he now races for Innovation Racing. And there's some very good news regarding Aaron Herbert we're going to be showing a little bit later on this broadcast. But a change of team, could that be a change of pace today? Well, he doesn't need to change his pace because he's definitely been one of the quickest drivers in the silver class since what has been at round number 4, and therefore right now only what is 5 points behind. You can imagine if he hadn't picked up those 6 penalty points earlier in the season, he would effectively be leading the championship, although you could say the same for Pegasus Sim Racing's Glenn Gondoliers all the way at the very top. MREU, meanwhile, for ERR by the organisation, a further 4 points adrift, and again those 10 penalty points preventing Emma from leading the championship, and this has been a championship so far where everyone is stumbling towards the lead, and MREU admitting in a post-round interview last time out the fact that she has yet to actually lead the championship, whereas the other 3 at the top there have. I believe Aaron Herbert has not, in fact, so let me correct myself straight away, but Clanvic and Gondoliers both definitely have, and therefore it's all shaking back and forth. But Ryu as well, hoping that if she was able to follow up the sprint win with a feature race win, she could be on top, but not quite at the moment. But then again, it gives and takes in the silver class, and right now that top 4 looking very close. Krista Halsoy, meanwhile, he wasn't on the grid last time out for Tractics Racing, and we're hoping to see him back on the grid today, and indeed he will be, so therefore he has committed what is at round number 5 as a drop score at this point. He's 8 points ahead of Ollie Pimley, who didn't quite have the fortune that he perhaps favoured last time out, albeit remembering, of course, round number 2 where he was a very strong contender at the Interlagos circuit, but he's got to try and refine that form for Ghost Squadron Esports. Chris Cole, the privateer, sits in 7th on 95 points, 3 ahead of Max Burrell, and then it's the HRT Nexus Racing driver who is followed up by Alan McCain and David Bigadite for iRace Esports and DCW Racing Red, respectively, who complete your top 10. Outside the top 10 by 26 points, it's Burton Tor, so Yentil Drive ahead of Matthew Wild for DCW Racing Yellow, only by result countback. Sadly, we're not going to see him Wild on the grid today due to personal circumstances. All's okay with him, don't worry. He's just not able to make the round of racing, unfortunately. But he is ahead of Ben Sieber by 7 points. He's a teammate, and the sister team driver there, and Mark Collicott, is a further point behind. Then we have Alexandra Longju sitting in none other than 15th place, just ahead of Rob Van Hoot, with the Blue Mercure Racing driver only a point ahead, and Anita Braun sits a further 4 adrift for Film BIL. And then we do have Nicholas Grunstrom, Mirzam Yutsupov, and Dave Van Dam completing that top 20, with Yutsupov making what was a return to the grid last time out after missing a couple of rounds, but he did take up some key points there, it did Yutsupov, and we look forward to more from him today if he's able to make this round. And Dave Van Dam, unfortunately, not having a happy day in the office at Imola, not Imola, at Monza whatsoever. He'll be hoping for a much happier day here today for GT3 Dave team. Timo Gertner and Fabrizio Penzo complete your Silver Drivers Championship, and well, ladies and gentlemen, that's how the standings stand. But what about our host circuit then? Let's give it a proper introduction. It is, of course, the Imola Grand Prix circuit, located near the city of Imola in the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy. A grand total of 17 corners and a circuit, thanks to iRacing.com for both their simulator and the brilliant chat mats contained with it, a circuit that you can see captured here in most of its glory. We say most because it doesn't quite capture all the elevation changes in a two-dimensional image, but you can definitely see how the long straights have been bisected by curves and chicanes over time, and what it does mean now, this really is a true stop-start circuit, which is about the sprint to the next heavy braking zone, and then being the best through the corner sequences to get into lead and then try to run away in the run to the next braking zone. And as our drivers make the way down the start-finish straight, they'll roar the way through the Kinka 1 and in towards the Tambrello chicane at turns 2, 3 and 4. Left, right, left they'll go for the medium speed chicane, and then upwards to Villeneuve, where it's all about trail braking for turn number 5 to set up the apex for turn number 6 as best as humanly possible. There they'll head uphill in towards the Tosa hairpin at turn number 7, one of the lower speed corners on the circuit, and as they exit the way out, having to bury the throttle in the camber of the corner, they'll then make the way up towards Pilotella, the off-camber sweeping left-hander at the highest point of the circuit, before they then plunge their way into Aqua Minerale turns 9 and 10. A very difficult sequence there, where it's all about carrying as much speed as possible through 9, and then straightening the steering wheel immediately to slam on the brakes at turn number 10. Get it right, they'll then make the way towards what will be the final major chicane of Variante Ultra. That'll be at turns 11 and 12 there, the low-speed section and the low-speed corners on the circuit, before they make the way down the hill through the Kinka 13 and into the braking zone for Ravazza 1 at turn 14, the downhill left-hand right-angle corner, followed up by the very flat left-handed right-angle corner at turn number 15, to then sprint their way all the way through the kinks of 16 and 17 to complete lap and do it all over again. And turn 16 and 17 labelled there as Variante Basso in reference to the MotoGP chicane that starts at turn number 16. But ladies and gentlemen, with that we now look to our rules. And as always, this is an open setup series, with drivers bringing a setup of their choosing to each and every week of racing. Qualifying, we'll see a closed qualifying format where drivers have an isolated instance of the circuit with which to try and do their best, and they have 4 flying laps available, plus the out lap. In terms of how we set the grid for the races, well, the sprint race grid shall be set by qualifying, that's a given, and when we go to the grid for the feature, it shall be set based on the results of the sprint race, albeit the top 10 finishing positions will be inverted based on how they finished in that sprint race. So, it means the winner will essentially start in 10th place, and we go down the order to the 10th place finisher, finisher, and they will be starting in none other than pole position. And after that, well, what we'll see is the drivers who finished a length and downwards, well, that is exactly where they're going to start for what will be our second race of the day. All of our races shall commence by a standing start as a tradition of Porsche Cup racing, and drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side, and as we do, well, we're almost ready to go green flag racing, but let's just give a shout out to our title sponsor for this season, of course, Energise Virtual Solutions, who is a software consultancy whose aim is to meet the demands of bespoke product services and development. Whether it's a completely new project or consultancy assistance on existing projects, Energise Virtual Solutions will be working alongside you every step of the way. And if you'd like to know more about them, do head to energisevirtual.com today to find out how Energise Virtual Solutions can help you. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are in perfect time then to get ready to go racing, because it is time as the circuit falls silent to go into qualifying. Who exactly is going to put it on pole in both overall gold and silver? It's time to find out. And so as we transition over to qualifying, it is 10 minutes, go, go, go. 4 flying laps, and they've all got to try and deliver them as best as they possibly can. But who exactly is going to? That's going to be the big question, and here we are about to find out. Now, what exactly is the importance of these qualifying laps here, Imola, here you ask? Well, they're very important. Track position around here is very valuable. It's not impossible to overtake. However, the problem with this circuit is the fact that when you're running right behind another car, well, you do have that lovely slipstream down the straights, but you also lose, well, there's a lot of downforce over the car in through the corners, that dirty air which washes out the front end and invokes understeer. So therefore you really do want to outrun your rivals to every corner rather than perhaps battle them into the corners, and battling here is going to cost you a huge amount of time, and it's time that you don't always have available to reclaim over the race distance, particularly in a 12-minute sprint, and perhaps less of a factor in the 30-minute feature. So therefore, as the drivers all head on the round, well, making their way up the hill goes none other than Richard Simnel there, but as he does so, we also look to Matt Strand as he's just left the pit lane. And the Ice Cold Racing, powered by Maxim Racing driver, talking to us after the racing at Monza and saying compared to his teammate of Oscar Berntsson, he is still trying to get to grips with the Porsche 92.2 Cup car. And I think the biggest challenge for him has been getting used to the fact he now has access to ABS on the car and getting used to how the car evolves over the race distance, plus also the fact that it is a car whereby you can lean more into the electronics compared to its predecessor, because of course the Porsche 92.1, we had no electronics packages on it. The Super Cup rules at the time were that those systems had to be disabled, whereas as for 2026 onwards, they are now enabled. And the reason for that, if you're curious, is to encourage more gentleman drivers and indeed lady drivers to be able to join. It doesn't mean that you just have to be a professional, and it opens up the sphere of potential drivers who can get on the grid for Porsche Cup racing in the real world, because the electronics are there to help make the cars a bit more approachable. That perhaps being the downside of the previous car, and the fact with no electronic aids whatsoever, they really are do or die car, or they were do or die cars. In the fact, if you made a mistake, it normally was a huge one, particularly under brake and when you'd lock up. But as we come from Strand, let's make our way to Aaron Herbert. And well, this man deserves a little bit of screen time because he's got some very good news, which I had the pleasure of hearing from him earlier today. He did say that I could share this live on air, ladies and gentlemen. And well, he switched to none other than Innovation Racing. But what exactly is he doing with Innovation Racing? Well, it's not just on the simulator, but he's also been selected as of Monday, the 2nd of February this year. It was announced on Innovation Racing's official Instagram account. And Innovation Racing, by the way, they are not just a sim racing team, they are a professional motorsport racing team as headed by Simon Griffiths, founded in 2024 and are racing in this year's British GT in the GT4 category with their Ginetta GT4 Evo machine. And well, Aaron Herbert has been selected as one of their GT4 Academy drivers, forming part of their 5 driver development program. So congratulations to Aaron from all of us here at the Race by Wire community. And it's so great to hear of another driver who's not just on the simulator, but also breaking into real-world motorsport. And he was saying to me about the fact he's very keen to get behind the wheel of a car in real life once again and get back out on track. But the one thing he'll need to do first and foremost when he takes his time in their Ginetta GT4 is get used to the car and acclimatise to how it behaves. And indeed, that's always going to be a challenge when it's a new car and it's a new year and it's a new story. But we wish Aaron Herbert all the best of luck in his new journey with Innovation Racing. But as he makes way onwards right now onto his first flying lap, indeed, all the drivers gone on to those first flying laps now, some a bit more progress than others, including Kim Andre Bjørklund here as he makes his way on down through the Ravazza curves. And now on to the start-finish straight he goes. As he does so, we're going to jump on board with him, I think, ladies and gentlemen, for a flying lap as Josh Boots sets the initial pace. And now here comes none other than Kim Andre Bjørklund to go on to his next flyer. So across the timeline he goes, sets a 41.568 as a provisional best. But coming down towards turn number 2, onto the brakes he'll go there. At the Marshall's post his brake marker, 150 meters from corner apex, trail brakes down the third, and makes his way from left to right, and then into left again. You have to settle the car down as he clatters over the curves, being careful there not to hit them too high. Now gets him ready to go over to the right hand side here for what is turn number 4. Onto the brakes, and through the left into right he goes, through 4 and 5, rolling over those curves, just enough to help rotate the car, and now over in towards the braking zone for turn number 6 the hairpin. Braking at the 100 meter board, you brake uphill here, so you can brake a little bit later, down to second gear, and now full throttle as he gets ready to mount the rise and coming towards Piratella. Now coming over the crest here, turn number 7, always a tricky corner to get exactly right. But on the brakes he goes, down to third gear, through the left-hander, and now coming down the hill here towards Aqua Minerale. At this point, getting ready to go onto the brakes, and he'll look to his left-hand side. Does he dab the brakes? I think slightly, and drops the gear as well, and then puts the brakes fully on there, coming through turn number 10. And as he bounces his way out of the corner, now bringing the car over to the left-hand side here, and getting ready for the auto chicane. Long braking zone here, it's not uphill, it's on the flat, braking at the 150 meter board, down to second gear. You carry as much speed as you can over those curbs, as much as you dare to string to do so. And car setup's going to be so critical to mount those curbs successfully. And now down he comes, in towards Ravat. So he's got the kink of 13 on the right here. He's got to make his way through that and keep the car nice and tight over to the right to go hard on the brakes there as soon as he straightens the steering wheel out. About 140 meters from corner apex, down to second gear. And now much flatter here, hold second gear, dab the brakes just to get the weight pitch forward again. And now out he goes, full throttle all the way to line for Kim Andre Bjørklund. And well, it's been a smooth run, no doubt about it, but how good of a run is it going to be as he comes to that timeline? And the answer is going to be, well, it was a 41.5680 previously set, and in the end he does not improve. In fact, he was practically a tenth down on his previous best, whereas everyone else is improving. He is not, but he's currently the fastest driver out there. So I have to wait and see what else he can do here, but right now that is definitely not an achievement or one he's too happy with. But we'll see what he's going to be able to do. And meanwhile, look to Glenn Grondeliers as he comes ripping and roaring on through, and well, he'll be charging his way all the way onwards, and we're going down towards what will be the braking zone here of turns 5 and 6. Well, right now Grondeliers, for all what he's been able to do in this car, it does seem as though at the moment he is the fastest of the silver drivers by only 3 thousandths versus Chris Cole. Cole very close to him, and it does look as though as well, ladies and gentlemen, in a bit of an intriguing twist, we are actually missing Oscar Berntsson today. So I wonder, was he accurate when he was saying about the fact he's going to be missing Daytona, or was it the fact actually he's missing this round? Because he's not here at the moment, and well, we do have quite a depleted gold class here today. But it's going to be a grid full of silvers, no doubt about it, and they'll all be trying to poke for points and also poking for overall podiums, if not the overall win. We've yet to see a silver take an overall win this season. Grondeliers has come close. The closest, however, has been Aaron Herbert on several occasions, but Grondeliers has also been up there. But in towards the chicane he comes, and as he does, we're currently the fastest of all the silvers by such a slender margin, and then Adam Klanvik is a further 800ths behind, and then Emma Ruiu is not too far adrift. So therefore it does seem as though right now the silver class once again delivering the tension, with Ruiu only 8 thousandths off of Klanvik. And these drivers all coming down through now as Josh Boot has just gone the fastest of everybody with 1 lap left on his board, and that's going to be a 41.532, only 36 thousandths faster than Bjørklund. Simnor's improved to 42.131. Grondeliers heads towards the timeline here. What's he going to be able to do? It was a personal best in the second half of the lap, so I think this is going to moving forward. It's a 42.193, so it puts him now 5 thousandths ahead of Chris Cole, who crossed the timeline there. And as Cole comes on through, well, right now, what can he do to improve? And the answer is going to be he's had a much better first part of the lap. However, he does not find a better time out there. So Cole's got it all to do in his final attack lap. What about surprises here? Is anybody not having a good day? Well, Aaron Herbert right now is just towed back to the pit lane. I believe he's had a bit of an excursion. So Herbert's not having a good one. But oh, goodness me, it's Ollie Pimpney there. Almost loses it coming out of the final major quarter. Going out of Ravatsa 2. The car sliding incredibly loose. And well, in the end for Ollie Pimpney collecting it together. But that's going to compromise the end of that lap. And he's going to lose momentum to the tune of about 5 miles an hour by the time he makes his way down towards the Tamburello chicane. So I wonder whether Pimpney right now is going to be up against the wall a little bit here with regards to this final flying lap he's going to put together. He's got the time to do it, but I don't know whether that lap's actually going to be worth it, given the fact he's lost a lot of speed into the opening quarters. Well, to be fair, if he can pull off a mammoth second half a lap, he might be able to make up the lost time. He's currently the lowest placed Dodge rider who has got a lap on the board, so Pimpney right now knowing he's got a lot of work to do. As Fabrizio Penzo, meanwhile, he's on his final flying lap. He's invalidated all his previous ones, so therefore he's got one last chance at this, as Alan McCain and Aaron Herbert are deciding not to put a lap together in the end. Herbert was out in the gravel at Tamburello only months ago. Not quite sure what's happened to Alan McCain. chicane, but both drivers struggling. We should also point out for Aaron Herbert, he is currently recovering from a wrist injury, so therefore it may be the case whereby perhaps he's decided the injury is just taking its toll a little bit and he's opting to start from the back of the field in order to just consolidate some points. But we do see Patrick Falconer saying that he's going to be back next week, and we'll be very happy to see him back once again, because Paddy, well, we got to see absolutely deliver last time out and put on a spectacle, particularly in the sprint race at Monza, and it's not quite the same without you here today, but I hope you're doing well, good sir. But as the clock's only got a minute left, all drivers have got to get their laps in before the clock strikes 0, otherwise it won't count. And well, Burton Torres comes towards the line here in the lovely liveried 34. He's currently the 10th fastest of the silver drivers. And what's it going to be here for Torres? The answer is, does he improve? Yes, he does. He goes ahead of Ben Seaver there by the tune of what is 2 tenths, a 43.898. A good lap from him. Goes 9th in silver class. Emma Ryu, meanwhile, has taken the pole position already in the silver class, where everybody else currently parked up, and Ryu's going to go even further. And so the ER by the organisation driver in the end nailing 3rd place overall. Well done to her. And the Italian on the home soil absolutely delivering at the death of the session. Kim Andre Bjørklund on a cool-down lap here. He has been beaten to pole by Josh Boot, who takes his maiden sprint pole position of the season on a 41.532. What a turnaround of fortunes there. And Bjørklund is going to miss out on that, but you'll still be happy to be on the front row. Gavin Petty decides to roll the car off the road there. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is qualifying complete. It's time to make our way to the grid for the first of our 2 races here today at the Imola Grand Prix circuit. So as they all make the way onto the grid, this is how all of our drivers will line up. Here's Josh Boot, who takes pole position in the round 6 sprint race here for Atomic Esports, ahead of Kim Andre Bjørklund for Sim Racing Norway. Behind them on row number 2, it's then going to be your silver pole sitter behind the gold pole sitter of Emma Ryu for ERR by the organisation. Delivering a very good qualifying session in the end and getting things done on the 3rd lap, but having the full flap in reserve if needed. Richard Simnell will then join her on that 2nd row of the grid for DCW Racing Blue. Another great qualifying points there from the British driver. Head of 2nd place, silver driver of Glenn Grondeliers for Pegasus Sim Racing, who in the end could only be ahead of Chris Cole by the best part of half a tenth. They make up row 3, and from the silver privateer, it's then the gold DCW Racing Blue machine of Andy Jones, and the Welshman in the company of Adam Clanvick for Ice Cold Racing by Max Sim Racing, who starts in 8th. Matt Strand starts behind his teammate, interestingly, by a 10th there in 9th place for gold, ahead of David Bigodite for DCW Racing Red, who rounds off your top 10. And in 11th place, it's going to be Alexandre Longier for BB1 Sim Racing, with a season best qualifying performance, ahead of Ollie Pimley for Ghost Squadron Esports, who did get it together right at the end of the session, but what a changing session he had. Chris Halstoy, meanwhile, he's returned to the grid, but the Tractics Racing drivers really struggled in this qualifying session, 13th when we normally see him inside the top 10. And then from here, it's DCW Racing Red's Gavin Petty starting 14th ahead of Rav Van Hoot. The privateer just ahead his fellow countryman of Burton Torso Yentl Drive, with Ben Sieber for DCW Racing Yellow. The last our drives were valid lap, starting in at 17th place. Aaron Herbert, no qualifying lap set, starts in 18th for Innovation Racing, ahead of Alan McCain for Iris Esports, and Fabrizio Penzo, last but not least, round off your 20-car starting order. Well, we've got an Italian driver in the silver class right at the front of it and one right at the back of it. But as we look down to the closer circuit side pictures, well, there is your field, ladies and gentlemen. They're all set and ready to go. And here come the lights for the first time today. It's 12 minutes of frantic action in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. They're out and away as they roar the way away down towards turn number 2. And as they do, well, Josh Boot immediately getting a good start. But who exactly's got the better launch compared to himself and Bjørklund? It's going to be Bjørklund on the outside here. But Bjørklund right now knows as much as they battle, it's going to be all about the latest of the breakers and going too wide all the way through. Bjørklund will take the place there for Boot by the looks of things as they make the way on through the opening couple of quarters. And well, everyone is safely through right now as in the end Bjørklund has cleared Boot. And in fact, Josh Boot has fallen backwards a little bit in a new livery machine. He's got Richard Simnell right now trying to poke around the outside of him as they make the way through Villeneuve. Too wide they enter, too wide they exit, but unfortunately Boot there slightly escorted outwards. He's going to be on the inside in towards Tosa, but he's picked up a slowdown for running up high on the curb, and as a result that's going to cost Boot a huge amount of time. As hold up a second, falling down the order there, that's going to be a Frenchman of Alexandre Longier, who's lost a few places already, and he's fallen back that little bit further as they make the way up the hill. But as all these drivers do right now, they're all pushing each other as hard and fast as they can, as Emma Ryu, well, the leader in the silver class, is under pressure here from Glenn Grondeliers. Grondeliers on the attack here as they make the way in towards the right-hander of Aquaman Orale, and in he's going to be all over the back, small tap there, and right now I think the Pegasus Sim Racing driver's got his tyres turned on a lot quicker. You can see Boot right now is really building up a queue behind him here. I don't think he's driving slowly, I think that's just the natural proceeding of order. And as they go onto the brakes here for what will be the chicane, it's going to be too wide between Ryu and Grondeliers, and in the end Ryu going defensive there and just bunching them up in it more. But meanwhile, looking further back. Oh, that's a big spin there for Alan McCain. He comes off of the auto chicane. The chicane claims its first victim. The 2-1-2, the Rexy machine for iRace Esports goes on around. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can. But meanwhile, more to come surely then as they come towards the end of this open lap. It's been a very nice lap from everybody involved so far. Very clean race and a few elbows out there. But to be fair, it is going to be a contact sport in these Porsche Cup cars. And as they come towards the end of lap number 1, well, it's Kim Andre Bjørklund who leads this race. He leads by 1.5 seconds over Richard Simnor. And then it's Josh Boot. After serving his brief slowdown, has fallen to third. Emma Ryu sits in the lead of the silver class in 4th overall. Having lost out their third place to Richard Simnor right at the start, but to be fair, holding on to the most important place, which is the silver lead. Then we do have Glenn Grondoliers in 5th, second to your silvers ahead of 4th place gold driver Andy Jones. Chris Cole is 3rd in silver in 7th place ahead of Adam Klanvik, followed by Matt Strand and Dale Biggerdike, who are round off your top 10. And Biggerdike's had a really good start to his race. He's making some good progress as well as they roar the way on between the corners, and he's held his ground compared to where he started. And I think he'd be very happy with that, given all things considered. But further back, this is going to be Burton Tor's being passed around the outside by Gavin Petty. Well, Heath Petty tries to there at Toaster Bend. He will in the end get the switch of the momentum there. He'll get the slingshot out the corner essentially. And Rob Van Hoot meanwhile side by side here with Aaron Herbert. And Herbert, who started from the what was 18th place, he's made one place up already. They both run a little bit deep. He makes sure not to push well, he doesn't push Van Hoot off the road, and in the end he gives him the opportunity to rejoin there. Great respectful racing from Herbert, and Seabat and Fabrizio Penzo are now queuing up behind, but making their way in towards and out of Aquinarani as quickly as that. This silver class battle here further on back is for 9th all the way through to none other than 13th place, and we do see Penzo looking up the inside there versus Sieber, but he's not going to be able to find his way through, and in fact goes a bit deep under braking, and that's going to cost him some momentum. But back to Ryu versus Grondoliers we go, and you're leading silver drives right now. There's Grondoliers on the inside. He takes a little sniff, but in the end, it's not going to work there. And right now, as we ride on board, looking back from the rear of your silver leader, well, your top 3 are now starting to abscond here. The top 3 are gold drivers, and I think it's really going to come down to essentially whose bubble's going to burst first in this battle for the silver lead and the rest of the field that follows it, because they come down the start finish straight this time. And look at the speed difference here. What's very noticeable is the fact that Ryu gets a really good run out of the Ravazza quarters, and it's only at the very top end is where the 33 starts to lose out on the slipstream, whereas Grondoliers is really bringing Andy Jones and Chris Cole along with him for the ride. And if anything, it does seem as though Grondoliers might be running just a little bit more rear wing, or a car that's not as quick on the straights but has a lot more pace in the corners by comparison, and that could be some key information that Ryu might be able to use later on. The race engineers for all teams, they'll be analysing the other cars and seeing what exactly their strengths and weaknesses might be, because this is a high downforce circuit. However, if you can try and get away by chipping off a little bit of rear wing, it can help on the straights, as Pimley there goes up the inside of the BB1 sim race machine of Alexandre Longjou, who goes a bit deep there coming through Tosa, and that's going to send the Frenchman down the order just a little bit further as Christa Halsoy queues up behind. And Halsoy, he's not had the happiest start today with qualifying, but to be fair, we know the track ticks racing dry. He is still getting to grips with this car. Indeed, every circuit presents a different challenge. And he also did mention to us when he had his last interview with us, I do believe that was at Road Atlanta, unless I'm mistaken, about the fact in the second half of the season he was expecting this to be a bit of an uphill battle. The first half of the season has really been at circuits he enjoys or is very comfortable with in the Porsche Cup car, whereas the second half of the season really is going to be a big learning curve. But that's why he's got your silver stars there. They're all learning. One day they want to become gold class drivers. But right now, will we see some gold class action here between Rui and Grondoliers for the silver lead? Again, they're repeating what they saw last time, is that Grondoliers does decide not to put his nose in it this time. And Andy Jones, meanwhile, the gold driver in amongst all the silvers, he's probably thinking to himself, how exactly did I end up here? And he wants to clear them, but understandably at the same time as well, he won't want to cause any untoward action between them all through the risk of them picking up a penalty potentially, and nobody wants that. New fastest lap race set by your third place man of Josh Boot, 41.700. So he's looking quite happy, but into that braking zone they come, and well, we can see this time Andy Jones looking around the outside here. He's had enough of waiting, and Grondolier's been caught up behind Ryu. They're going to be too wide coming up through the exit Tamburello, and then Grondoliers has to go high. Oh, and they make contact. They touch and they're into the barrier. The pair of them, the smallest of touches, and it sends both cars sliding on around on the grass. And will they'll both rejoin there, but they'll both be in states of disrepair. And will Jones immediately will have to make his way to the pit lane, given the fact he's got enough damage there to trigger the meatball flag, which means the car is not in a safe condition of race. It needs to come within 3 laps that flag being awarded. Meanwhile, Richard Simnor and Josh Boot, they're suddenly getting a lot closer together again, and Simnor's had a very poor start to this opening lap, well, the opening half of this lap I should say, and meanwhile as they come down the hill in towards Aqua Minerale, right now the number 42 driver under pressure and Boot really on a mission. But can Josh Boot find his way into second place here? And keep an eye on, of course, that Boot's aspirations has been to be on the podium as much as possible, if not take race wins. And he mentioned that to us all the way back at Interlagos, and the fact that he really wants to hunt after the very best here. And he's showing it week in, week out. As we do say hello there to none other than Dino, I believe that is Dino JE 51 there, who's cheering on number 19, and that's our Rob Van Hoot there. And right now we can see your 15th place driver. Well, he's broken away from Sieber and also from Alan McCain, but he's now got to try and chase down Tors and Grondeliers. Grondeliers in a wounded car, of course. That will aid him to a degree, given the relative pace of the two drivers, but credit where it's due to Van Hoot. He is currently running 10th, and he'll pick some good points up there, particularly if he's able to achieve that again in the feature race. From him, we come back to the front of the field, and we see Adam Klamvik here with his teammate Matt Strand, the silver ahead of the gold from Ice Cold Racing. And now these two pushing each other along as they make their way down towards Tamburello. What's going to be this time? Strand looks around the outside, and he gets a little bit too eager around the outside, takes some grass for good measure, and we'll be taking some samples on those right-hand side tyres as it's a poor run from Cole. Here comes Klamvik building up the speed, and Klamvik in the smiling Swede right now not quite able to make a move there on the Briton, but you can definitely feel it's coming here. He is trying to find a way in if he can. The only problem is right now, of course, in the fact that with Cole so close to Ryu, they've all got the toe of one another, but Emma Ryu seems to be not quite on the pace to break away here after Grondeliers' demise. I wonder whether Ryu's perhaps just taking it a little bit easier on the car to protect the tyres, and instead is hoping that she can back everyone up into fighting each other. It worked for what was Grondeliers versus Jones, albeit unfortunately both drivers in the end ended up knocking each other out of the race with that contact coming out of what was the Tamburello chicane. But understandably right now, well, it is one trick you can use. It always runs some risks, however, when you do back drivers up into each other, which is if you time it wrong or both drivers get an upper hand, they may just be able to make some gains on you. As Josh Boot, meanwhile, going slowly there. I think he's made a mistake at Aquaminerale. He's going to lose out. In fact, he's going to drop down here into the braking zone. It's going to get very crowded here. There's contact between Boot and also Klamvik, and well, side by side, Matt Strand squeezes one through, makes it 3 wide for a brief moment, and Strand in the 185, he clears both of them there. Goodness me, that's the story to be told, but it's not over yet as they come down to that braking zone for Ravatsa 1, because here comes Pimley. He's not going to make it. Boot's going to go up the inside there of Klamvik and try and take the place back. Boot does have a slowdown penalty. The track limits, which he's already burned. Meanwhile, Glenn Grondeliers, he's trying to make a recovery drive out of this. It's gone very backwards right now, but he's trying to progress just that little bit more if he can. But as they all make their way down the start finish straight, well, we've only got a couple more laps to go here, and the intensity is absolutely building to a crescendo. As they roar the way onto lap number 6, we will get 2 more laps in after this one. So therefore, we are going to see 8 laps, I do believe, unless my mental mathematics is incorrect. Bernard's Boot there, and well, Klamvik goes wide. I wondered if that's a mistake from Klamvik there. I presume it would be. We'll get a replay of that shortly, but Klamvik's going to lose out massively, and Chris Cole, meanwhile, is under pressure from Matt Strand. Strand right now, well, suddenly he's been released onto the world. I think he was just waiting to clear a few drivers, but in the end, he's going to go wide, and as a result there, well, you could definitely tell that Cole was absolutely unflinching, uncompromising in his stance, and Strand in tried to hang it around the outside, only to realise too late, Cole is not backing out of that one, and well, I think when you're that far on the outside, indeed he was overlapping, but when you're on that outside coming through Villeneuve, particularly when you get to the apex of Turbo 5, normally if you're still on the outside then, unless you've got ahead of your rival, normally you do need to expect her to back off there, or it's going to be a very tricky one. And Cole definitely was not flinching, because I think right now he wants to make sure this second place in silver definitely comes to him, and he doesn't have any other silver drivers get close. Speaking of which, Ollie Pimley, he snuck his way up the order, the Ghost Squadron Esports driver. He may have had a bit of a difficult qualifying session, leaving it late in the day, but he's moved forward very quickly, as Cole meanwhile now has Boot on his inside here, and Chris Cole's being absolutely raided in. No! It's all gone wrong for Josh Boot as he goes completely around, and well, the number 69 driver makes another spin out of things again, and for Josh Boot, you couldn't believe it as it all goes round on him twice. And right now, well, Chris Cole suddenly with all that elbowing around, he finds Ollie Pimley and Alexandra Longjour right with him, and this silver class right now, it's absolutely going crazy here with what is 1 more lap to go. We are not going to get an 8th lap in. We are literally 5 seconds away from it. Well, they're all scrambling down the start for this straight. We've got instance in the start of the race, which unfortunately we're not going to bring you replays of, ladies and gentlemen, because right now we need to stay firmly fixed on all the action that's happening live. And as they make the way on down here, well, right now Ryu is absolutely cleared off to the tune of 3 seconds, and Ollie Pimley in second of the silvers right now is Chris Cole right alongside him. Cole takes the place back immediately in the drag race braking zone, and then we can see Strand, Klamvik, Halsway and Longjour right there. But we're in the way on through here. We ride on board with the man at the back of the group for BB1 Sim Racing, and well, the number 12 try here, he's going to take his best result of the season if things stay as they are, but I think he wants a few more places if he can. And, well, you never know, it may all go wrong here before it goes right for some drives in front. All it takes is one drive to get it wrong, and suddenly all the places could come together. Longju there misses breaking point slightly, has to throw the steering to the right, and then fighting with the steering wheel there. And right now, the momentum of the car swinging around there like a pendulum. And as he makes way up the hill, he's going to fall back a little bit here, but perhaps that'll buy him some space and some distance in order to be able to see what lies ahead. But further back, well, Alan McCain trying to chase after Rad Van Hoot here, and right now the number 19 driver may be at risk. We're going to keep a distant eye on this where we can, because meanwhile we come back to what is Cole, and well, he's got a 7/10 of a second gap. That's Ollie Pimley. He may have been able to break away as he makes his way up towards the auto chicane, and well, Matt Strand is still there, as is Adam Klanvik. But as they all go line of stern into that braking zone, we can see here Glenn Gondoliers and Josh Boots still together as well. Well, we do have to leave them behind, ladies and gentlemen, because as they come towards the end of their race, meanwhile, it's to this man who sees the checker flag, and for Kim Andre Bjørklund, it's been a run all the way to victory. A well done one at that. He takes your golden overall win ahead of Richard Simnor, who takes a new second place for him. And he's yet to finish second on the grid until today. And then it will be Emma Ryu who'll be coming home your silver winner here in the first race of the day at Imola. Much like at Monza, it's off to a good start for the home hero. Head of Chris Cole, who holds on to second place in the silver class, fourth overall. Ollie Pimley follows on through to complete the podium and returns to the podium. The last time we saw that from Pimley was all the way back at what was Interlagos. Matt Strand will come home in sixth place ahead of Adam Klanvik, who just missed out on the podium, ahead of Krista Halsoy, who despite a difficult qualifying session moved forward to finish fifth. And in the silver class and eighth overall, Josh Boot will take ninth place, and Glenn Gondoliers will round off your top 10 there, as it's been a bit of an altercation between drivers parking up. Burton Torres finishes 11th ahead of Alexandre Longju, and it's Rob Van Hoot, Alan McCain, Ben Sieber, and then Dave Bigadite, Fabrizio Penzo, and Gavin Petty, who finished this race on the road. Here comes Petty. He will be 18th. He'll be your last finisher, and all of them on the lead lap. And unfortunately, commiserations and retirements of both Andy Jones due to that contact between himself and Glenn Gondoliers earlier on, and also Aaron Herbert retiring quite early on, and I do believe that might be the wrist injury coming back to haunt him. And unfortunately, if so, there we might not be seeing Aaron Herbert in our second race of the day. Goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a first race here. And well, as we take a brief breather from all the racing to get ourselves set for race number 2, let's take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, for our sprint race in round number 6 of season 1 of the Race by Wire Porsche Cup, sponsored by Energise Virtual Solutions and brought to you on iRacing, Kim Andre Bjørklund in the end for Sim Racing Norway, delivering as he knows best, taking the lead and never looking back. Didn't start on pole, however. Josh Boots at that accolade, but it was Bjørklund who was able to steal it off him early and then run away. Richard Simler took the run-up spot there, having started in fourth. The DCW Racing Blue driver kept it all smart together, but he had to battle hard with Josh Boot, and he did find his way past, with Emma Ryu staying third. And what an absolutely brilliant run there for Emma Ryu, for ERR by the organisation, to make sure that it's another sprint race win, but on home soil, can she now make it the double? Chris Cole, runner up there in the silver class, the privateer. He'll be pleased with that in the number 11, ahead of Ollie Pimley, with the Go Squadron Esports driver completing the silver podium in a fierce battle. But for Pimley, coming from outside the top 10 to finish well inside it, he's going to be absolutely chuffed with that. Matt Strand took 6th place there, the third of the gold drives. Important points for him, ahead of Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing's teammate of none other than Adam Klanvik there. I think it'll be a bit frustrated with how that one ended, given the podium was almost near sight of the silver class, but 7th it was overall in the end. And it was Krista Halsoy in 8th for Track 6 Racing ahead of Josh Boot for Atomic Esports and Glenn Gondoliers, who round off the top 10. But the Pegasus Sim Racing driver be absolutely gutted after that contact with Andy Jones that scuppered his chances at what was the win in the silver class, if not at least a class podium. Burton Torres was best rest in a length for Yentl Drive ahead of Alexandre Longju, who lost out towards the end due to a mistake at the auto chicane on the final lap, but still a good result from him. Ahead of Rob Van Hoot, with Alan McCain and Ben Sieber completing your top 15, and it was David Bigadite ahead of Fabrizio Penzo and Gavin Petty, who round off your top 18 drivers and all finishers of the race. And unfortunately, we did have retirements of Andy Jones and Aaron Herbert. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that completes our rundown of the finishing positions from race number 1. And, well, I do believe in good time too, because without further ado, it's time to head to the grid for race number 2. And well, ladies and gentlemen, as we do head to that grid, we have an update on Aaron Herbert. He lost force feedback with regards to his sim racing setup, so hopefully we do get to see him back on the grid for race number 2. But here we go then, onto the grid. This is how they line up for what will be at the 30-minute feature race. It's Glenn Gondoliers who takes the top 10 inverted pole position, and he will be joined on that front row from the silver pole sitter of Pegasus Sim Racing to the gold pole sitter of Josh Boot for Atomic Esports. So it's always a silver lining for the pair who had a difficult end to their race 1s. Chris Halsey starts in third ahead of Adam Klanvik, with row number 3 going to Matt Strand and Ollie Pimley. On row 4, it's Chris Cole and Emma Ryu, with Richard Simnel and Kim Andre Bjørklund who round off your top 10. Outside that top 10 then, they start where they finished in the previous race. It's Berntsson Torves ahead of Alexandra Longjuve, with Rob Van Hout in 13th ahead of Alan McCain, and then we have Ben Siebert and David Biggerdyke making up row number 8. On round number 9, it's Fabrizio Penza and Gavin Petty, and then our 2 retirees from race number 1 complete the starting order of 20 cars, Andy Jones and Aaron Herbert. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they're all set and ready to go on the grid. Let's indulge them then for the second time today. Here come the lights. And it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 lights. And it's lights out, and away we go here for our second race of the day. 30 minutes, but it's a slow start from several drivers there. I think everyone's stumbling to get off the line. Glenn Gondoliers does get it off the line eventually. Josh Boot with him, but looking further back. Strand immediately on the attack here. Oh, there's already contact. Gondoliers has been turned around under braking there by the looks of things. Was there contact with Boot? I suspect there might have been, but as all the field comes through, they've been scattered everywhere. There goes that Longjuve out, and well, he's gone flying to the inside of turn number 3. Want to understand what's happened to him very shortly as well, but all those have survived. And they carry on as they meant to do so. And Josh Boot right now, where he is your leader with Gondoliers in the end. We have to understand what happened there. We can't get away with not having a replay of that soon. But right now as they head up the hill, we're Hal Sawyer here. He's holding firm. As they make their way through the Toaster hairpin, as further back, we can see here 2 wide. That's going to be Van Hout versus Biggerdyke. And here comes Petty trying to make it 3 wide up the hill. Well, this is going to be brave on the opening lap. Albeit it's the diagonal 3 wide there. The camera a bit deceiving. But Van Hout right now holding off Biggerdyke. And then Petty thinking about how he gets involved. But not like that. As we ride on board here with the number 32 driver, he comes on down the hill. But in towards Aqua Minerale, and as he thinks about it, well, cold tires and cold brakes early on, and he goes a bit deep there. The DCW Racing red driver completely makes a ham sandwich out of Aqua Minerale, and that is going to put him under pressure from the cars behind, including, most importantly, Andy Jones there, the first driver behind, who is a fellow gold driver. But further back, there's Glenn Gondoliers on the attack versus Aaron Herbert. They go 2 wide in, well, they go 2 wide out, as it's 2 in front as well, and there's contact there. That's Siebert into contact with Fabrizio Penzo, and in the end, they go to a tyre barrier, and Glenn Gondoliers can't go to the inside because he's got Herbert there, and in the end, he goes to the outside, and Penzo rolls in the way, and Ben Siebert goes on around as well. My goodness, it's chaos there at the auto chicane, but whilst it's been chaos for them, it has been a little bit of an easier start perhaps for some drivers, as Josh Boot makes his way across that timeline and on to another lap. So Boot leads then after a dramatic opening lap, followed by Adam Klanvik, your silver leader, just behind the gold leader. Then we have Matt Strand, followed by Chris Halsey, because Strand is just now starting to inch heady on the inside. Halsey does not fight it. Understandably, his focus is making sure he picks up the silver place finishing positions. Ollie Pimley sits in 5th, ahead of Kim Andre Bjørklund in 6th. Then we have Richard Simnel in 7th, ahead of Emma Ryu. Right now, the winner in race number 1 of the silver class, trying to make a way forward, ahead of Berntsson Torves and Alan McCain, who completes your top 10, with Rob Van Hout, meanwhile, having a good start to this race. He's up into a length already, and he's got David Biggerdyke for close company right behind him, and Gavin Petty and Andy Jones also want to get into that fight. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a look back in time to that race starting in particular. Well, in fact, we're not quite yet, because Biggerdyke's going to lunge up the inside there of Van Hout as he comes out of that left-hander, and we're going onwards now towards the next braking zone. Well, Biggerdyke here looking furious. He's looking fast, but can he put it together here? That's the problem, because I think Gavin Petty is thinking about a move behind him if not, and in the end, Biggerdyke does have to go a bit wide because Petty puts it up the inside. Cars off the road there as well. That's Alan McCain who's taking a trip to the gravel, not to play sandcastles. That's not the way you want it to go whatsoever, and the dinosaur right now has been beached, but hopefully he can get back on the tarmac soon. He's got to drop all the way down to 17th place. There's been a bit of an altercation at Piratella for someone, and in particular here for McCain, but I wonder if there's more than one party involved in it, as Chris Cole will catch back up to him. Well, as he now does so, Rob Van Hout and Biggerdyke still very close together, and right now, well, the Belgian driver really enjoying a good run. However, Biggerdyke here, I think he's got the pace. He just needs to find the right place to get the move completed. That's going to be a lot easier said than done here, but coming down to Ravazzi, he goes all in. Biggerdyke this time says, I'm going to get done, and Petty also looks up the inside. Slight contact there between Biggerdyke and Van Hout. That's going to send him out wider, and well, Petty will come through in the end. He tries to come across there to cover of Andy Jones, who says, can we make it a 3-for-1 special? And Van Hout says to him, no, you cannot, and he tries to slam the door in his face, but unfortunately for him, Andy Jones was slightly alongside, and therefore he did have to back off a little bit when he tried it. Here they come down and start finishing straight, and as they do, well, he tries right now as he pushing each other onwards, as Jones here looking to the inside, and right now the gold driver I think will clear the silver, and he does so, as Van Hout in the end goes very deep, goes up with the 2 wheels there, and you've got to feel for the number 19 driver there, because he has just been shuffled down the order there like a stone, and will just rolled on down, as Aaron Herbert meanwhile, well, it looks like he's got the force feedback back in the car, and as he comes through the Villeneuve chicane, he's now up into 14th place. His next target will be Van Hout, the man who's been losing out the most. But Herbert right now definitely seems to be back on the pace that we saw earlier on today. As Big Like meanwhile still fighting Berntsson Torfs. In fact, he just cleared Torfs coming out of the Toaster hairpin. Let's correct ourselves. And Torfs right now riding on the back of him here like a bad rash. But I think this is just to pick up as much speed as possible while they go through Piratella. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we take a trip back in time to see what exactly happened at the start of the race, including this incident for Glenn Gondoliers. So as they made their way down towards the braking zone here for turn number 2, was there contact is the question? Yes, there was under braking. That was Josh Boot, when I think in the end it was caught out by Gondoliers braking a bit earlier than perhaps expected. Can we get the on-board from Boot's perspective? Yes, we can. This was the on-board. Let's listen in. And I think their Boot was caught out massively by Gondoliers braking when he did. I think Boot was expecting the braking point to be about 20 metres later. So as a result, the 69 driver there, well, I think there's going to be words between the two of them after the race, and both of them will be saying the opposite of the other, which is you broke early versus I broke normally. Meanwhile, we had this for Alexandre Longjou further back in the pack as it all went wrong at the front. Well, meanwhile, for the BB1 Sim Racing driver, just took a bit too much apex curb there at turn number 2, and it sent the car around, unfortunately. If everyone cold tyres, there wouldn't have been the grip, and the rear right tyre in particular would have been the biggest victim of that. We then had this for what was Ben Siebert and Fabrizio Penzo at the Auto Chicane. This was too wide into the chicane, and in the end, we still had Siebert on the inside there, tapped for Penzo slightly, and in the end, they slid backwards, and Glenn Gondoliers there happened to be in the right place at the wrong time to be escorted with them. This is what it looked like from on board his car. He's going to see they're suddenly going to make contact. There they go, and then he tries to go around the outside, and in the end, it's a space that just gets squeezed tight, and he just wants to get clear of them, and in the end, he is able to, but understanding, I think in the heat of the moment, there might have been a few words under his visor. But then we had this for Rob Van Hoot on lap number 3. This is Van Hoot making his way in towards what was the braking zone here for the Auto Chicane. And as he did so, we're hopping his way on through. Lost the rear of the car, in fact, there, and went on around the Belgian driver just now. That's happened. And a big unfortunate moment from him. And we had this a little bit earlier from Alan McCain. And what exactly happened to Alan McCain for Iris Esports? This was over the rise, in towards Piratella, battling with Berntsson Torfs, and contact there under braking. Now, the camera angle would perhaps suggest that Torfs came across into McCain. I don't think McCain had any more room to manoeuvre, but we won't assume that it is Torfs' fault. That's just what one camera says. If it goes to the stewards, they've got every camera available to them. But definitely a bit of a rough somewhere between Torfs and McCain, and, well, McCain coming off the worst of the pair. But back to your live racing, we come, and in good time as well, because Boot, who has taken the lead this race, of course, well, as a result of the contact between himself and also Gondoliers right at the start, albeit we're not saying it's his fault necessarily. That's going to be under a interesting review, I think, with regards to who broke too soon and who broke too late. Well, meanwhile, Boot making his way down that straight right now, and he has got Adam Klanvik close behind. But in the way onwards, well, we do say hello there to Oscar Berntsson, who says, after a long day at school, I fell asleep and missed today's race, and that explains it. And, well, I'm sorry to hear that, Oscar, and, well, hopefully the only thing we can do is turn that frown into as a smile to a degree, because your teammates are definitely doing a fantastic job in your absence, although I do appreciate you want to be there and represent the team and be the third man. But right now, Klanvik and Strand are definitely pushing hard here, and both trying to chase down right now podiums in their class in this one, if not wins in class, but they've got some work to do. As meanwhile, Kim Andre Bjørklund picks off another driver here at the inside of Krista Halsoy, and Richard Simnor right behind as they make their way over the crest. Well, right now, Simnor here definitely starting to build up a little bit more pace. Of course, he put together that second place in race number 1, mirroring what Falcon was able to do in the sprint race at Monza. So DCW Racing taking second place in both sprint races in Italy. But right now, can Simnor get a bit more involved here? Further back, we've got plenty of fighting going on in this group. This is Petty, Torfs, Longjou, and Gondoliers. Gondoliers, of course, in the car that's definitely been beaten and knocked about a bit. Longjou's car's just gone for a spin, and Torfs, meanwhile, has seen a little bit of elbows out racing, and Garen Petty's, meanwhile, has definitely been all or nothing in terms of the driver's approach. But here comes Gondoliers looking up the inside. He's going to take a bit of an all or nothing approach here if he wants to make the progress and get that championship back online. But right now, Longjou just staying one step ahead of him at least this time. Back to Andy Jones we go then versus Aaron Herbert. And Aaron Herbert, who started all the way down at the very back of the field, he's made some great progress from 20th to 11th. And, well, we ride on board with him here. And he makes his way through Ravatsa 2. Keeping it nice and close as they power their way down the straight. Now, in terms of the speeds they're picking up, well, in what is at clear air, they're normally maxed out to the region of about 160 miles an hour. In the tow here, I think we're going to be seeing a bit more than that, as Herbert now makes his way through the Kinka 1 at 170 miles an hour almost. In fact, he will be at 170 as he goes on the brakes, dives all the way to the inside here, and when he gets it stopped absolutely perfectly on a dime. Lovely work there from Aaron Herbert. And I think even Andy Jones says he tried to switch it back to get the cut back in towards turn number 3, I think even as to respect the fact that Herbert nailed that absolutely on point. Berntsson Torfs meanwhile battling here with Longzhu and also Grondeliers. They go too wide into Villeneuve, and in the end Torfs is going to go on the off the road and back onto it, and he disappears, rematerialising. That confuses things massively, and in the end, well, now Longzhu is going to be passed around the outside by Grondeliers here, and well, can Grondeliers get it done? No, he can't. He runs out of road and carries too much speed in the first place. So Alexandre Longzhu right now, who I think when he looks back at that incident between himself and Torfs, and the same for Grondeliers, they're going to say that given the fact that we did have the car of Torfs blinking in and out of existence, that complicated the matter, and well, I wouldn't want to be on the stewarding panel for that one if it gets reported, because I can imagine that is going to be a very hard one for them to dissect essentially. And well, credit where it's due to our stewards for this season, ladies and gents, and they've been putting in an absolute amount of overtime, because we have had some rather contentious incidents, but to be fair, they've done a fantastic job all the way through. But you'd expect to have any series where it's close racing action, you're always going to have stewarding verdicts, because the instants really do summarise how much this means to all the drivers. But as they make their way onwards, well, we can see there Longzhu and Grondeliers now trying to go for the move. He will be on the inside by the time he gets to Ravazza 1. He's just got to nail that braking zone, and he will do so by the looks of things. And in the end, Longzhu will lose out as now Cole and McCain queue up behind. Both drivers had difficult starts to their races, but particularly McCain, who found himself in the gravel trap. But right now he's clear of all that, and he's back on the charge. Kim Andre Bjørklund looking up the inside here of Matt Strand. That's going to be another move made for what will be the driver who's trying to move it into second place in the Gold Class Championship. Well, this result right now would definitely move him into second, and it would seem gain some significant ground there on Oscar Berntsson, who of course will now be committing this as a 0 score round, as well as the drop score at Daytona, as he reflects on that in the YouTube chat as well. So for Kim Andre Bjørklund at this point, can he now get to boot? Can he deliver the win? And if he does so, well, it will be back-to-back wins here, and suddenly for Bjørklund, it will be the perfect score to really bring parity at the top of the table before Daytona. We'll have to see, because meanwhile, looking back to Ryu, chasing after Pimley, and Ryu still on a mission as she makes her way up the hill and get ready to go into that braking zone for Bahiratella. But can she get it done? The answer is not quite at the moment. We're running in that draft, and Pimley, to be fair, I think he's been the dark horse here today. Pimley's had a lot more pace under race conditions compared to qualifying. I just don't think it's worked out for him in qualifying. Because the one thing about this similar circuit is it is very aggressive on its track limits. All the corners here, they've got very strict limits compared to some circuits, and that's why you're seeing a lot of slowdowns being awarded. And also, I think a few drivers very sensitive to the idea of running even slightly wide or taking too much curb. But if you can get away with it, go for it. That's the rule of racing. But if you're going to get caught, you're going to get caught massively here at Imola, as here comes Bjørklund up the inside of Klamvik now, coming down for Ravazza 1. Squeezes round the inside through the left-hander. On turn number 15 he goes, and in the end, Kim Andre Bjørklund gets that done. Klamvik all over the back of him right now. Strand and Simnor, they all run together. And well, here we go across that timing line with 18 minutes still left on the clock. We've got a long way to go in this race still. And right now, well, Bjørklund fighting his way on through. Strand and Klamvik, meanwhile, both trying to find a way back here. And well, is anything going to come about of it? It's going to be Klamvik looking all the way around the outside. Strand tucking in behind what is Bjørklund. The two teammates stumble over each other a little bit here, and Strand does clear his teammate in the end, but it was not the easiest way to do it. In fact, it buys Bjørklund the best part of 7/10 of a second as a result. So Strand's there. He does get the position overall of a Klamvik. I think the two teammates are given the permission to fight each other, but I do wonder there whether perhaps that's actually got Strand the opportunity to stay right behind Bjørklund all the way in their pursuit now to Josh Boot, who's 2 seconds up the road. Well, we will see, but definitely an interesting that one, as meanwhile, Chris Halswise onto the back of this, so is Ollie Pimley, 3 seconds back. He's thinking about getting onto the back of this where he can, but he's bringing Ryu with him. Further down the order, here's Chris Cole, and chasing after Alexandre Longzhu, who goes very deep there at the hairpin. Well, he brings it back together, takes a V-shape approach, whereas it's normally a U-shape approach for these cars. And what's going to cost him a bit of time, to the tune of about what will be a tenth or two through the apex. He will gain a bit more speed up the hill, will Longzhu. However, he doesn't gain the overall net time, if you will, as these drivers all make their way deeper into this race. We're almost at the halfway point, and it has very much been a very entertaining race thus far. Unfortunately, we have had a retirement from this race of Berntsson Torfs. Now, what exactly has happened to him? I think we might be able to get a replay. In fact, we've got a few replays to line up. Starting off, of course, with what happened in the incident between Torfs and also Longzhu and Grondeliers. And here's a replay of that. So this was as they made the way all the way in towards Villeneuve, and where it was complicated by Torfs appearing and disappearing. But Longzhu was on the inside. Torfs went deep, and as he went to rejoin, well, came across there, but he never made contact effectively with Longzhu's car because of what was the latency. And then Grondeliers made contact with him, but I think Grondeliers didn't know he'd made contact until it was far too late. And well, both drivers then carried on fighting as a result. But then only months later on lap number 7, we had this for Fabrizio Penzo, where it went a bit wrong for the 55 driver. however, making his way up towards the Tosa hairpin, chasing after Ben Siever, went into the hairpin, and the rear of the car stepped to loose, and in the end it went all the way around, and he had to get that quickly turned back around. And then we had this with Berntsson only moments later. This was Torfs making his way in towards the auto chicane, a bit lonely at this point in time after his incident on lap 6. Took a lot of apex curb, and the rear of the car completely let go, and it all went to the pit lane for Berntsson. But back to your live pictures we come, and as we do, well, there's been some more change of foot because Richard Simnor has lost time to Halsway and Klanvik. In fact, he's lost places as well. We're going to get a replay of that shortly. What it does mean now is the fact that he is behind Klanvik and Halsway rather than in between them. And Will Pimley and Ryu will use that as a little bit of a guiding stick there to be able to chase him down that little bit quicker. But Ryu is getting tantalisingly close to the back of Pimley. I wonder whether our 33 driver here is thinking about a move soon, because when you are within 3 tenths for almost the entirety of the lap, that's normally a sign that you've perhaps got a bit of a pace advantage here at Imola and you need to think about making that move. But Pimley right now not feeling too pressured here as they get ready to bring this lap to an end. But from them, we come to your leader, Boot. And right now, the gap that he had, well, last lap, it was a 42.3 for Boot. Meanwhile, for Andre Bjørklund, it was a 42.09. This time, as they come across line to complete what is their 10th tour of the circuit, what's it going to be? The answer is it's a 42.8 for Boot. Meanwhile, it's a 41.9 for Bjørklund. That's a monster lap there from your second place man. Fastest lap of the race now by a considerable margin. He is absolutely hauling right now as your number 88 driver. He can see it here today. He can see with his main rival in the championship of none Oscar Berntsson not on the grid, and also the fact that with the win in race number 1 and Boot the only driver to go, he can maximise the points and he can put on the pain on the rest of his rivals as Matt Strand makes a slight error coming through Villeneuve and picks up a slowdown penalty result for Adam Klanvik as well. He's got to burn that gradually as here comes Richard Simnor. Simnor goes all in, a monster run into the hairpin there, goes up the inside of Halsey, and in the end Simnor clears both of them there. My good lord, we're going to have to take a look back at that. That is absolutely bonkers there from Simnor. Where on earth did that come from? I want to tell you one thing right now, the British driver there absolutely delivering, and well, that's going to be a 2-for-1 special for the highlight reel this season, but as they make the way down in towards that Minerale right now. Halsey is still chasing after Klanvik for the win in the silver class here, as Pimley and Ryu are still 2 seconds back. They're not really closing at a rate of knots. And I wonder if right now these two are starting to fight each other. Well, there's your answer. They are. Because here comes Ryu looking up the inside. Pimley does not give way until he absolutely has to under braking. Pimley's holding firm here and right now. Well, I get the feeling that Pimley wants this just as much as Ryu does. And well, that sounds very obvious. But the idea is here that Pimley wants these points. He wants that silver podium. He wants a double podium here today. And he is absolutely digging in as hard as he can. But coming down for Rivatsuan, that is cheeky there from Pimley. Now, that is leaving the door open, essentially saying to the driver behind, if you go for it, we're going to have an instant. Pimley right now definitely taking a bit of an Ayrton Senna approach here in the fact that it's either going to be his way or they're both going to come off the highway. But as they make the way down towards turn number 2, well, Pimley right now knows that Ryu will gain little by little, but you can see there the ER by the organisation car not gain as much speed. Perhaps it's not quite as geared by comparison, but into that braking zone they go. Ryu goes all in. It's a lovely move there from the Italian driver, and Pimley doesn't have a response at this point as Aaron Herbert now is on the back of this. They've cost each other enough time to bring Herbert into the mix, and we've still got just over a third of the race to go. So this race still has a lot of question marks over it. Who's going to be on that final podium spot here in the silver class? And Aaron Herbert right now might be fancying his chances in the number 3. It should be P3 for him today. But as we leave the poetry behind, look to the very front of the field, Boot and Bjørklund, they are now together, as Andy Jones unfortunately has had to tow to the pits whilst all this has been happening. We'll try and get an understanding what's happened there shortly, but down the hill they come, and well, Boot and Bjørklund here so close together now, and well, I think Bjørklund, if he got any closer, he would tap in the rear of the car in front of him, but the Norwegian driver won't want to do that. He wants to keep this as clean as he can, but where can he exactly go for the move? Well, the run towards the auto chicane here, it's going to be too short a run, and it does seem as though Boot is very composed at Minerale, so that might not be an in route. But what will definitely be an opportunity will be the run down towards Tamburello come the start of the next lap. Given the gap right now is 3 tenths as they come down to Rivatsa for the 11th time of asking. And well, from this far back, can you go for it? Yes, you can, but you're going to have to send it from very far back and rely on the driver in front of you to see it. And what if they don't see it and you make contact, it's normally on you. But Bjørklund there makes a bit of a mistake at Rivatsa 2. The car not when to turn. In fact, it's got a lot of understeer as he tried to turn the car in. And the 88 driver falling back to the tune of an extra 4 tenths. So gap is open to 6 tenths. He's not going to have the run this time down towards turn number 2. He's going turns away as Boot puts in a personal best, the 42.380. He is still trying to find that pace, is Boot, but goodness me, it is proving to be a challenge when he's got this intense pressure of Andre Bjørklund behind him, who is absolutely hauling. From them, we come back quickly to what's some big moments, including this for Richard Simnor. So this was Simnor making his way down towards turn number 2 and battling with none other than Adam Klanvik. Now made his way into that braking zone as he did, went around the outside but had to take to the gravel there, carried a bit too much speed and it didn't work out. So how exactly then did he find his way back ahead of what was Halsoy and also Klanvik? Here's the later replay to explain that. So this was coming through the Villeneuve chicane, and in the end, Halsoy getting caught behind Klanvik, who'd made a mistake. He went to the outside, and Simnor in the end saw he could get the inside of what was Halsoy, and then saw that Klanvik had gone deep due to the dirt on his tyres, and lovely counter-attack there from Richard. Simnor saw the opportunity and immediately did not waste any seconds of it. Lovely move, and indeed that has got to be one up there for the move of the season. We had this unfortunately at the same time for Andy Jones. This was Jones making his way in towards what was the Villeneuve chicane. What exactly went wrong for Andy Jones? And the answer is he hit the curb, and I think going to that curb it's damaged something with regards to suspension because the car was not wanting to turn in anymore. I think Jones, just by hitting the sausage curb, he's broken something, and well, we're not quite exactly sure what, but something has gone on the car and his race is done and dusted. I suspect it's a suspension link that's been broken there due to how hard he's hit that curb. But in good time, we come back to your leaders here with 10 minutes left on the clock plus the final lap. And Boot right now still ahead of Andre Bjørklund, at least for a moment. But it is 2 tenths by the time they cross the line. And right now, with the 88 drivers not close enough this time, I don't know when he is here. He comes up the inside. Boot stays around the outside here. Battle on the brakes. Can he make it too wide all the way through? He tries to, and he's going to force it too wide through 3. In towards 4, but taking that apex curve at 3. It's going to cost him some momentum. Now, onto the next run he goes. And Andre Bjørklund immediately cuts across there. Boot follows him across the road. Look at one way, then the other. They're bobbing. They're weaving. And as they come through in towards Villeneuve, well, right now Boot wants this back. The Atomic Esports drive is glued to the back of the Sim Racing Norway man. And as they head into that braking zone for Tosa, you can see there Bjørklund parking the car in the middle of the road, but Boot gets a lovely run to the apex. He's going to have a good run up the hill here. Is he going to be able to go to the inside of Piratella? It's 50-50 because he is very close. He might be able to go for it. Does Bjørklund cover him off? The answer is no, but Boot taps him on the rear there. And I think right now Josh Boot thinking, don't do it here. It's not worth it right now. Focus on later on lap. Keep staying close. But as he comes down in towards Aqua Minerale, here's the problem now. Has he got a car that's comfortable to run this close through the hardest section of the circuit? The answer is yes, just about, but he does lose the 10th there coming on through. Natural concertina effect as well applying, making that gap look bigger. We're getting ready to go onto the brakes here for the auto chicane. He's got to really nail this, plus the Rivazzas, if he wants to be able to go on the attack in towards Tembrello on the next lap. This might not be over yet. It might be a back and forth between them with Matt Strand, meanwhile, only 1.2 seconds back. But he's picked up another slowdown of Strand for cutting the apex at turn number 13 too high, and that's going to push him back just a little bit. So Strand right now can't get involved in that lead battle as much as he desperately would love to here. Make it a three-way fight, but he's being held back by track limits. But as he makes his way back up to speed, he's got to hope here that Boot is able to come back at Bjørklund. Otherwise, this race win battle may finally be settled. And with 7 minutes to go, the tyres right now are not going to be in a comfortable spot for anybody here. These tyres normally do last the best part of 20 minutes when you push them that hard, depending on the circuit. Sometimes more aggressive circuits than tyre wear, we'll see the tyres only last about 15 minutes. Imola's quite considerate of tyre wear, to be fair to the cars. So therefore, Boot right now, he's not able to get close enough, and I think Bjørklund might be able to start to pull away. Well, we'll see what he's going to be able to do. As meanwhile, we come back here to Alan McCain, who's chasing after Chris Cole. This is for 8th place in silver, or 12th overall on the road. And what we can see is Cole right now ahead, but only by 4 tenths, and McCain is the faster of the two drivers. Now, he has been aided by Slipstream to really make that statistic matter. However, McCain right now will know there's an opportunity here. He's just got to get close enough to try and make it materialise. Now out of the chicane they come, and as they make their way in towards the Tosa hairpin, well, is there going to be a difference of line here? And Cole, the run into the corner was really good, but it's a really poor exit beyond the apex there. Chris Cole almost lost the rear of the car. McCain, meanwhile, was very smooth on corner exits, so complete contrast of performances there. But as we leave them, we've got a bit of a battle here for what is the last of the running positions. Ben Sieber there making the move on Rob Van Hoot. Does he get it done? Well, he does, but he makes a complete mess of turn number 3. That's going to give Van Hoot the opportunity to come back here. This is going to be 11th place in the silver class. Sieber going defensive. Meanwhile, Van Hoot looking around the outside. Sieber's going to be on a very tight line here. Does that scupper his run through the rest of Villeneuve? Yes, it does. Now, can Van Hoot capitalise on it? Sieber goes defence immediately. 9 of Van Hoot's trying to get him offline even more. He succeeds, but now Van Hoot's got to get a really good run up the hill out to Tosa. But that's going to be the hard part here. He nails it, but so does Sieber. Now that gap's going to come down. It's going to be the best part of only at 2 tenths here. If that, in fact, a tenth as they come over the rise. Sieber going defensive here. Van Hout looking to the outside. Sieber on that very tight line. He's going to park the car, and he almost loses it. Van Hout has to back off. And in the end, well, that's going to give him the opportunity to switch the outside to the inside now. And it'll be Sieber who comes through. Sieber's not done yet. He's coming back as well. They fight each other hard, and in the end, Van Hout not expecting Sieber to be on the inside. Takes the escape road there. And, well, he has to lift off the throttle to make sure he doesn't gain too much time. But for Ben Sieber, he does hold it. But my goodness, you don't normally go too wide for Aqua Minerale in any car, let alone a Porsche Cup car, and that's where you see why there. And Van Hout in the end, I think, being caught out by the fact that Sieber threw the car back into the space. Credit where it's due to both tries that they did well to respect each other, but I think Ben Sieber completely catching the Belgian out, and in the end, all the Britain getting that one, but I wonder whether we will see Rob Van Hout come back at him later on, given he has got the pace advantage. Well, we'll come more than that shortly, because that was actually a brilliant battle between those two, and that's what it's like right at the back of the field, so you can understand why everywhere you look on this grid, whether you're at the front of the field all the way to the very back, there's always plenty of entertainment to be enjoyed here in the Race by Wire Porsche Cup. And was Garen Petty's in the pit lane, I believe, when issued to the car, perhaps. We're trying to understand what's happened to that shortly. Well, meanwhile, we had this happen in parallel for David Biggerdike whilst we're enjoying that battle further down the road. Now, this was David Biggerdike making his way down in towards Aqua Minerale. Into turn number 9 he went, took a lot of apex curb there, then went to turn number 10 and carried far too much speed, tapped the curb as well, and that sent the car spinning around there. I think Biggerdike, because he was offline into 9, that just subsequently caused the car to have a lot more momentum than he originally expected, and in the end he was really at the mercy of the car and hoping it would stop naturally, but it did not. Back we come then, and 4 minutes left to go. There are your leaders. Kim Andre Bjørklund ahead of Josh Boot by 6.5 tenths. The gap is gradually building little by little, and it is Andre Bjørklund's ability over the whole lap just to extract a tenth or two that is making the difference. Aaron Herbert is into the pit lane meanwhile. Now, there's been no black flag as far as I'm aware of Herbert. Has he underfueled the car by a lap? I think he has, because he makes his way down. He immediately pulls the car over here. A black flag will be a drive-through penalty. He wouldn't be doing this. Aaron Herbert's into the pits, unless it's another technical issue. Well, we'll have to wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. But for Herbert, it has gone wrong. And not so, as they make their way onwards right now. Will he be able to get back into that one? He has had a splash and dash. It was 6.3 seconds stationary. So Aaron Herbert, in the end, underfueling by a slender margin. But by those small margins, it really does matter. And it has gone wrong for Herbert there, and he will not be too happy about that. But as he now has to try and get this race back together as best he can, well, what is he going to be able to do at this point is the question, and the answer is not much. There he is, having left the pit lane, and well, he drops down to 9th place in silver, 13th overall. That is definitely going to be crippling after it's been such a phenomenal run in this one. But from here, we then look to Ollie Pimley. And Emma Ryu did find a way past Pimley, and in terms of when that happened, well, it was on lap number 11, and in fact, I don't think we caught that at the time, so we take a look back at how Ryu made that move. So this was the third place into what was the second place in the silver class in the end. And, well, I think we did catch it at the time, but here's a quick back of it anyway. And it was up the inside there. Ryu on the inside, and Pimley in did not have a response. He tried to go for the cut back, but Ryu bouncing away over every curve. And Aaron Herbert in the end, who did find his way ahead of what was Pimley, well, that's how important it was, because suddenly Aaron Herbert is out of the podium places. And what a move from Ryu that was. As we make our way back towards your live pictures with 2.5 minutes left to go. There's not long left in this one, ladies and gentlemen, and well, things seem to be settling down to a degree. Our lead battle, 6 tenths is the gap, as Bjørklund right now has actually been reeled in a little bit by Boot here with only 2 to go. And well, understand at this point, Matt Strand is for 3.5 seconds back. I don't think he thinks he can be a player in this one. I think his mind will definitely be of the mindset here that a third is better than nothing, but he would love to be in that lead battle if he could. Richard Signal's 1.6 seconds back and closing gradually, and then there is your silver leader, Adam Klamvik, who right now very comfortably clear of the rest of his silver peers by the tune of 4.5 seconds over Emma Ryu, who is there in 6th place, making her way out of the Villeneuve chicane, and has cleared Ollie Pimley, and Pimley holding on to that 3rd place spot in the class right now, and it's a further 5 seconds back before you do get to Krista Halsoy, who is being chased by a steady pace driver of Glenn Grondeliers, who after what was a very misfortunate start to this race is now bringing himself just that little bit closer, and the Grondeliers is going to be making a habit here of finishing what will be in 9th place again. So I do believe, in fact, Gondoliers did finish what was 10th in the previous race. He's gone one further than his previous race, but indeed in both races he has been struck with drama. And on this one, it was right at the start of the race rather than in the early stages. And hold up a second, we've got Josh Boot around. Boot's got around. That is at the auto chicane, I think. So Boot's going to lose out to Matt Strand. So there is a little bit of a miracle here for the Ice Cold Racing team in the gold class, because Strand will pick up the second place now if he can keep it together for one more lap. But Josh Boot's got it wrong. What exactly happened? Here's a quick replay. Tisser's Boot chased after Bjørklund as quickly as he could, but in towards the auto chicane. Went as aggressively as he wanted to do so. Took a lot of curb at both, but as he came down to the second apex curb, the car in the end are bottoming out there on the rebound of the suspension, and unfortunately the bump stop's just not having enough in order to be able to absorb that impact. And for Josh Boot, it went round just like that. And the only person he can blame for that one is himself, unfortunately, in terms of taking those curves. But of course, understandably, in the heat at the moment, he's throwing everything at the position and indeed trying to move forward versus Bjørklund. But unfortunately, now he's cost himself some places and he's also cost himself some valuable points. But he'll look back at it and learn from that mistake. Indeed, he's always looking to improve. And well, Josh Boot will come back even stronger in a week's time at Daytona. But final lap on the board, we look back to Alan McCain versus Chris Cole. These two fighting over 6th place in silver, with Aaron Herbert's pit stop, of course, bringing them a further place upwards. And Cole thinking about a move. It's not going to be from that far back, surely. As time goes to 0, and it means we are now on to your very last lap of racing here today at Imola in this feature race and also overall. And right now, can Cole find a way back through? Well, he's not got long to find out. As meanwhile, Matt Strand and Richard Simnor are very close together. Suddenly, Simnor has really sprung to life. In fact, on that last lap, Strand was a whole second slower. Now, I wonder if there was a slowdown that previous lap. I suspect there might have been. That's costing the time. But right now, can Richard Simnor still the second place back? Can he make it back-to-back second place finishes for DCW Racing in both races? Well, he's not too far away from potentially doing it as he completely hustles after the man in front of him. But as they come down the hill, is he going to go for it under braking into Ravazza 1? If he is, that's very far back to do it. I don't think he will. I think he's going to hope that Strand makes a mistake at the final major corner. But meanwhile, make no mistake, for this man, it is going to be back-to-back victories for Kim Andre Bjørklund. It's going to be perfect 40 today as he cross-line your winner at Imola in the feature race. And Matt Strand, meanwhile, will hold on for second place just ahead of Richard Simnor, who completes the overall gold podium. Adam Clanvick comes through to take the silver win here. What a drive from him. Ahead of Josh Boot, who finishes in 5th. And it is going to be Emma Ryu, who comes home in second place. Not quite able to make it. Back-to-back wins in the silver class, but definitely back-to-back podiums. And for Ryu, it's definitely making amends for Monza. Ollie Pimley, he makes it another podium. Well done to him. Double podium today. Returns to the best form that he's seen all season. Ahead of Krista Halsoy, who did well to finish 4th in silver and 8th overall ahead of Glenn Gondoliers with his own great recovery drive. And then Alan McCain will take 10th place ahead of Chris Cole as best to rest in 11th. And then we do see David Biggerdike. Well, Chris Cole, in fact, has picked up a black flag. So Cole, in the end, is going to lose out. So is Aaron Herbert. In fact, both of them picked up for black flags for instant points on the final lap. So this is going to shuffle the whole field around. David Biggerdike in the end will take home 11th place. 7th in silver ahead of what will be Cole and Herbert. Now, depends on the post-race time penalty that's applied to them, which will vary depending on the length of the pit lane for that drive-through penalty they can't serve. It could be anywhere between 25 and 50 seconds. We will see what this does for Rob Van Hoek. Does it leap him up the order ahead of the pair? Well, here comes that timeline, and the answer is no, it does not, at least for now, but it may do in the post-race results, and Ben Sieber comes home in 15th, but that's subject to confirmation from the iRacing timing system. That completes our race finishes, ladies and gentlemen, as they all come on home, but goodness me, what a race it has been. And well, in the end, we did have the 5 retirees of Alexandre Longjou, Garen Petty, Fabrizio Penzo, Andy Jones and Burton Torres. But what a race we've had, as there, a broken down car, Kim Andre Bjørklund, that's run out of fuel, comes to a halt, and that is none other than Krista Halsoy's car taking a bit of a parking space. But as Emma Ryu gradually makes her way back to the pit lane, well, I think she'll be very pleased today. It's a win and also a second place. Not quite the perfect 40, but coming very close there and just absorbing the moment as she makes her way back towards the pits. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results from our feature race, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, after an intense 30 minutes of racing in the round 6 feature in the Race by Wire Porsche Cup, sponsored by Energise Virtual Solutions, we got to see Kim Andre Bjørklund make it 2 from 2 here today. A perfect 40 score. He may not have taken pole position, that went to Josh Boot, but when the points were on the line, he absolutely was the one to dine. Matt Strand took second place at Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing, benefiting to some degree by the misfortune at the end for Josh Boot. However, he had to be in the right place to take it. And then Richard Simnor rounding off that podium, chasing down Matt Strand. But unfortunately, the DCW Racing Blue Dry had to settle for third when he really wanted that second place. Adam Klanvik, your silver winner. The Ice Cold Racing by Max Sim Racing driver really having a good turn of pace in the mid portion of this one, and the Swede there able to bring home a great result and an important win for him as he tries to make sure his championship campaign stays online, ahead of Josh Boot there, who was 5th in the end for Atomic Esports, and he'll be gutted for the fact that a small mistake at the Alta chicane cost him the chance at another podium. Emma Ryu, a runner-up in the silver class, 6th overall for ERR by the organisation, fighting hard to come on through. Bound to fight very hard, in particular with Ollie Pimley, who finished 3rd for Ghost Quadra Esports. Back-to-back 3rd place finishes in the silver class for the 29th driver here today. And then we do see Krista Halsoy in 8th, and the Tractix Racing driver coming through the field after difficulties of race number 1. And Glenn Gondolier is recovering well after the open lap opening corner incident for Pegasus Sim Racing to finish 9th, just ahead of Alan McCain, who completed your top 10 for iRace Esports. Rexy took a trip to the gravel, but in the end, McCain made sure he could bring Rexy back on the road and beat David Bigdike, who was best of the rest there for DCW Racing Red. And then we did have Rob Van Hoot in 12th place, the privateer just ahead of Ben Sieber in the closing stages, with the DCW Racing Yellow Drive just missing out versus his Belgian rival, but the Briton comfortably ahead there of Chris Cole and Aaron Herbert, who completed a lead lap finish in order. It was a lap down as classified, and therefore he will be a finisher of Alexandre Longjou. The BB1 Sim Racing driver had an unfortunate start to the race, and his fortunes didn't improve really from there. And then we did have earlier retirements for Gavin Petty, Fabrizio Penzo, Andy Jones, and Burton Torst to complete your 20-car order. What a pair of races, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness me. As quickly as it started, however, that has completed all our racing here today at Imola. But fret not, because whilst our circuit goes silent, we will be back in approximately 3 to 5 minutes' time for post-round interviews of our volunteer drivers. And I'm sure they've all got a story to tell us, but who exactly will be joining us in the interview room? Well, you'll have to hold on to find out. We'll be back as soon as we can. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews. And joining me first, well, it's going to be some time since we've heard from him. It's DCW Racing Blues' Richard Simnor, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Richard. And well, what a day from yourself today. Podiums across all 3 sessions. Your best results of the season, arguably, across the board. You must be happy with how things have gone at Imola.
Yeah, good evening, Paul. Yeah, it was good, good little session. That nice quality, nice races. Good pace, really. Sort of felt comfortable in practice. Had some good times on the board. But yeah, just tried to keep my nose out of trouble and do my best.
Well, indeed, absolutely brilliant pair of races where you did keep out of trouble as best as you could. And we're going to talk about some moments in the race a bit later on. But starting with qualifying in the Imola circuit, we saw you take 4th overall, 3rd in the gold class, just pipped to 3rd in the end by Emma Ryu. Were you happy with that 4th place, or do you feel as though there was perhaps a bit more time out there?
I think there was a bit more time. I think with off-tracks being as they are on that circuit, I just sort of played it a bit conservative, built up the laps, and then tried to go for it on the 4th lap, but ultimately that time I posted was the best I could do.
Well, fair play. Well, I think playing it conservative definitely paid off. And going into the first race, we saw you have a reasonable start as things got very firm at the front of the field. Did you have a plan in mind for the 12-minute sprint? Because this Imola circuit, it's quite a difficult one to overtake at, perhaps, compared to others.
Yeah, that first race was quite interesting. I adjusted my clutch position for this race. Got a much better launch than I've had all season, which got me alongside Emma, and then with I think it was Josh and Kim, wasn't it, in front, fighting it out. I managed to pick the right line, get the inside the second chicane on Josh. Maybe squeezed him a little bit more than he would have liked, but ultimately that got me through. And then yeah, I knew Kim's pace is going to be he's going to have the edge on me, so really it was all about sort of preserving the position rather than going chasing for the win.
Well, a smart approach, I think, there, making sure to bring on home those key points rather than trying to chase down a position that might have just been a bit too far away. But it does mean that you've carried on the trend from your teammate of Patrick Falconer from Monza of a 2nd place in the sprint race. So started off well. Then going into the feature race, meanwhile, now starting all the way back in 9th. Did you have an alternative approach? Because 30 minutes, but you've got a lot more drivers to pick your way past.
Yeah, I luckily ended up behind Kim. I say luckily, I think he started behind me, but he had a great start. But luckily, I sort of kept that position right on his bumper. That opened up opportunities, obviously, because he looked like he wanted to get to the front quite quick. So I just made sure to sort of follow his lines and get those sort of sneaky moves done. I think I had a good run of it until I went wide at T1 and then a bit across the gravel and lost a couple of places to 2 silver drivers. But then I got them both going into the hairpin, which put a big smile on my face because that meant I could go chase Mads for what would have been 3rd at the time. But unfortunately, I think that mistake really lost me, well, what would have ultimately have been 2nd place with Josh spinning off. But yeah, I sort of dropped back about 3-4 seconds, and I think I needed one more lap in the end. It was one of those, but it was a good chase. I knew I had the pace on him. I knew ultimately he probably would fight fairly. If I got a run on him, he wouldn't be too difficult with me. So, which would have been good in a way because I was running out of off tracks. But yeah, it was good. It was good, nice pace, nice sort of focused race. Other than that one mistake, like I said, I think that was really the sort of defining moment for me, which meant I finished 3rd ultimately. But yeah, pleased with that. Really pleased.
Now, definitely pleased with the result, but I do have to ask about, you were saying about the mistake and the moment we got to see you really deliver what was going from a mistake to Sonny, one of the moves of the season, taking 2 silver drivers at the same time, effectively coming out of Villeneuve into Tosa. Glenn Gondoliers and also, I believe it was Adam Klamvik at the time. I mean, was that all planned that you were going to cut up the inside of both of them into the hairpin?
No. But the guy who was in front went wide, So that just gave me the opportunity to tuck in. And luckily, I think he noticed that was happening, because I think he had, I could tell from his sort of body language, he had that thought of, well, I should really block this off, but he probably would have compromised himself quite a lot to do that. So he didn't. He ran out wide. I ran out into the middle of a track and just had the right momentum to stay alongside up the hill, which is great. And I got the two cars that I was hoping to get past, but I was hoping to get past him a lot quicker and a lot sooner in the race. Yeah, it was good. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was a bit. It's a bit Dan Dare for me. I mean, you commentate on a lot of my races, and I tend to just sort of pick my battles a little bit. So that was probably the bravest move I've done in a while. But I pulled it off, so it was fine.
Oh, indeed. It was a brilliant move, to be fair. And like you say, having seen you race in several series and you are more perhaps conservative or reserved with your moves, to see that come out of left field, well, it definitely was a treat for the eyes. But with that, it does mean back-to-back podiums here today, a very good haul of points. Coming into this round, 4th in the championship and chasing it down what will be at least the top 3 spots at this point. But it's such a tight fight for second. Are you still thinking about the top, or are you thinking now more about, can I get in the top 3 at the end of the season?
I definitely think top 3 is the target. I think, depending on attendance and all this kind of stuff, I mean, we were quite light on numbers tonight. Hopefully that continues, because that will work in my favour. But yeah, I think definitely with the group of drivers who are at the front, it's going to come down to a lot of luck, I think, as well as obviously being in it to sort of win it. These guys are all quick peddlers, so even if I'm on form, it's still going to be a fight. But yeah, I think with the sort of consistency I can sort of show across a race weekend, I think, yeah, who knows? I mean, we'll see at the end of the season, won't we?
Oh, 100% we will. And as we gradually narrow our way down towards the end of the season, next up, of course, will be none other than what will be the Daytona International Raceway's road course. What can we expect from you there?
Hopefully not dying at the bus stop. That's what I hope for. That's my game plan. But yeah, I tend to do all right there. Not amazingly well, but I've got a good lap in me. It just depends on how that Porsche is going to take the bus stop curbs, which we know the peak up is really bouncy. So that might go one of two ways. It might handle those curbs really well, or it might be an absolute disaster and it's going to be a bit of a risk every lap. But we'll see when we get on track and see how those curbs behave.
All fair play. Well, the curbs will always be something that everyone needs to work through, particularly with the suspension of this Porsche car being so sensitive, and we look forward to seeing whether you can conquer them next time out. But just before we do let you go, Richard, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to?
Yeah, all the guys at DCW, we all turn up en masse. We have a good laugh. And even Paddy was watching. He wasn't able to turn up tonight, but he was watching the stream. So, we like to treat it as a bit of a social event for us. So it's always good. Nice camaraderie. So yeah, all the boys.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I do know that yourself and the DCW racing team, like you say, huge camaraderie and a huge outfit. More friends than just teammates, to be fair. And we've seen you really do well for the team today. Richard, we'll leave it there, but congratulations on back-to-back podiums. A really solid day. And we look forward to seeing you at Daytona when we can do it again or even chase down a race win. Until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul.
So hearing there from Richard Simnel, ladies and gentlemen, the DCW Racing Blue driver who definitely enjoyed himself today. And I can tell you one thing, hearing there about the fact really playing it conservative and considerate in qualifying, but then perhaps unleashing a little bit more in both races, he really did embody what the main driver spirit here at Imola is, which is you've got to be so careful of those off tracks, and he managed to do so well, and that's why he looks so good over distance. Talking about in the sprint race there, gradually making his way forward, and in the end making sure he was able to get into second, but couldn't quite catch up to Kim Andre Bjørklund, who was just a little bit too quick, but still taking the places as he needed to from that fourth place start, but in battling none other than Josh Boot, who fell down the order, and then in the feature race, gradually picking his way through, ruined that mistake, however, that he did make, which cost him a bit of pace and perhaps cost him the chance of chasing down the second once again, if not the win. However, very happy with what was a little bit of a do-or-die move versus his two silver peers, who he found coming out of Villeneuve and in towards Tosa. And even that goes to show Richard Simnor, the more considerate driver, can also have a little bit of a hot streak streak in him when he needs to. But he'll want to tap into that hot streak even more at Daytona, even with all the dangerous curves at the bus stop chicane if he wants to put a win in his basket. But we'll have to wait and see until next week where he's able to do so. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got plenty more interviews to come. And, well, we'll be back very shortly for interview number 2. And so, ladies and gentlemen, joining me, I believe, for the first time this season in the interview room is going to be none other than Ollie Pimley in the silver class. And as we do bring him into the interview room, good evening to you, Ollie. And, well, what a day it's been from yourself. Last time you were on the podium, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was all the way back at Interlagos in round 2. But you're back on the podium, not just once, but twice here today. How do you feel about it?
All right, Paul. I'm really happy with it, actually, to be honest. I've not had the best few races since Interlagos. So I came to here today with quite low expectations of myself, but it turned out to be pretty good. The first race, everyone just seemed to move out of my way, tripping over each other. And then the second race, it just seemed to be pretty calm. Me and Emma had a decent battle for a few laps, and yeah, it was decent.
Oh, indeed. And it's been a great story for yourself here. And let's just go back to qualifying for a moment. Now, we heard from Richard Simnight only moments ago. He said in qualifying, he played it a bit safe because track limits here at Imola can be so precarious. 12th from yourself overall at 7th in class. Were you playing it safe, or was that the best you could get out the session?
The first 2 laps, I thought, you know what, I'll try and play it safe. And I still managed to off-track them. So at the third lap, I was like, okay, I need to get at least a time in. It put me last, and then I thought I've just got to go for it and do something, and then that put me 12th. So I was like, okay, that's fine. There's definitely plenty more time out there, but especially in the race, I found there was a lot. I don't know if it was just because of the grip levels came up, but I found it a lot more grippier in the race rather than quali.
Well, fair play. Well, the circumstance in the race definitely coming through for you, and as well as grip levels going up, you mentioned there in the fact that in the sprint, everyone just seemed to part the seas and just let you gradually progress through the field. I mean, there were some big instances for several silver drivers in that race. Beyond that, it being a 12-minute race, did you expect that you were going to be able to make anywhere near as much progress?
Not that much progress. I thought I could gain a few places. I quite like Imola in terms of it being. I find it quite decent for overtaking, to be honest. I know a lot of people don't think that, but I find it to be the complete opposite to that. So I was pretty confident if I had the pace, I could move forward. But I didn't need the pace. Yeah, like you said, the sea parted, so I just managed to gain positions naturally.
Well, it was natural gains in the end in our sprint, but in the feature race, meanwhile, well, what we got to see there was you start from 6th place in the order. And in the early stages, big incident, of course, for Glenn Gondoliers. Well, I do believe it was Glenn Gondoliers. Yes, it was, who went out wide. And in the end, that dropped 1 place. But for most of the race, you found yourself battling with Emma Ruiu as we look back at some of the replay footage here of Emma being right on your backside over the race distance. How was that?
It was pretty intense, to be honest. Emma kept showing their nose every now and again, and you know they're fully within their right to do that. And they pulled off a good move on me into turn 1 eventually. I expected them to fly past me, to be honest, which kind of gave me confidence in my own pace that when they drove up to me, they didn't just drive past me as well. So when that happened, I was like, oh, hang on a minute, I've actually got something here. So my main objective then was to try and keep Emma behind me. Maybe I think they was running out of fuel towards the end as they slowed up on the last lap. I'm not too sure, but maybe one more lap and I could have got her back. But yeah.
Well, it was unfortunate, not quite to be in terms of trying to get that place back, but brilliant battle back and forth between the two of you. And also, I'm just out of curiosity here, we also talk about a lot the fact that in the longer race, tyre wear does become a bit of a factor, but you seemed very consistent over the race distance. Were the tyres quite kind here for yourself?
I think so. The one time where I did feel a bit of the tyre wear was the last corner, the last left-hander coming back onto the main straight. It seemed to fade off a little bit there. But overall, it was pretty good for the entire race stint. Definitely a lot better than I anticipated it to be, which I was pretty happy with. But yeah, it wasn't so bad. I thought it was going to be a lot worse, but thankfully it wasn't.
Well, indeed, and thankfully we got to see you bring home a second podium of the day and really matching what's been your best form in Brazil earlier on the season. But with that, a return to form for yourself and the Go Squadra team. Next up is Daytona. Can we expect this from you again there?
I hope so. I haven't driven this car at Daytona yet, so I've got a bit of work to do. I'm okay at Daytona. It's definitely I think it's definitely one of my weaker tracks, but hopefully we can have a bit more luck than we had today, and everyone just gets out the way for me. That'd be nice.
Oh, indeed. Well, whether the seas part for you at Daytona next time, we'll have to wait and see. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
The main people I want to shout out is just my team, Go Squadra Esports. Without the support, it would be a lot more money out of my pocket to do this, so I'm really thankful for them.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it's so good that you've got the team behind you and you're able to be on the grid on a weekly basis. Ollie, we appreciate seeing you put it together like today. A brilliant pair of podiums, and hope we get to see that even more at Daytona next time out. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. Appreciate it.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Ollie Pimley, very happy with his performance today, no doubt about it. And talking there in particular as well, about the fact that everything just seemed to come together in the races compared to in qualifying. Well, the pace wasn't there in the car with the grip in qualifying. When he pushed it, and then he could only get 12th. But as soon as he went into the race conditions, Sonny, there was grip available. And in the sprint race, talking out really that the seas parted in front of him and several drivers lost out where he was able to gain. So really a race there where all he had to do was survive to finish in that 5th place in the end. Whereas in race number 2, well, he had to get his boxing gloves on proverbially, and we saw exactly that there when he did go battling with Emma Ryu, having to defend lap after lap for the best part of what was the whole middle third of the race, about 9 minutes in, through to the best part of about, 9 minutes to go. And well, Pinley losing out in the end with quite a classic move made by Ryu in towards turns 2, 3 and 4, but respecting the fact it was a lovely move, as we did see more battling like this earlier on, where it was a bit of nose pushing into places, but that's what it's all about here at Imola. And it's interesting as well, saying about the fact that overtaking around here he finds actually is quite viable, whereas many drivers consider it's not as viable. But of course, every driver has their own opinion, and it's always good to hear from our drivers up and down the grid, because Pimley really a fan of Imola circuit, and he's hoping to repeat this again at Daytona, and we look forward to seeing whether he can do so, because he's definitely been one of those drivers, when he's been in his form, he's been looking very impressive, but when it's not gone right, it's definitely been downhill. But hopefully, it's all looking good from here. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. We'll be back very shortly for another one. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our third interview of the night, and it's none other than Krista Halsoy, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Krista, and well, this season, it continues to give, it continues to take, and here today at Imola, it's giving you a few points, most certainly. Are you happy with 2 top 5s?
I mean, yes, but I'm also preparing the race driver's book of excuses. I think I have about 3 or 4 pages noted down now for reasons why I didn't do better in the feature race. That was oh man. No, honestly, I came into this race more or less happy with just finishing. I've never been a fan of Imola, and it's not that the track itself is bad. It's just it has some technical requirements that I completely lack. So I'm very off pace and I'm not that consistent. But add to the fact that I had technical issues that cost me around 15 seconds of clock smash. It went from being good to being kind of what I expected anyway.
Oh, fair play. I mean, we'll break it down and gradually tick off the excuses one by one as we go. Let's talk a little bit about qualifying. 13th overall, 8th in class. It was a tight qualifying field in the mid-pack, despite only being 20 drivers here today. Was qualifying a bit of a struggle session, or perhaps what you expected and you'd have to do the work in the race?
Honestly, the qualifying, I'm not sure if it was the track or the car or me or a combination of all of them, but it felt worse driving the car in quali than any laps in the race. I really actually struggled in quali. The first lap it got invalidated. Second lap I drove so cautious just to get a time on the table, and then I just messed up the 2 final laps. So that was pretty terrible. I've only recently started to become relatively decent at qualifying, and this is just back to what I used to be, and that is a terrible qualifying driver.
Well, it's funny you should have mentioned about the struggles in qualifying and the pace not being there, because the man we just spoke to, Ollie Pimley, also said the same, that there was a lot more pace available when you went green flag racing. So onto the races we went. Sprint race, 8th overall, 5th in class. It did look a very challenging race, to be fair. Ollie was mentioning only moments ago that the seas really parted for him, but it looked so it was a less straightforward race for yourself.
Yeah, it was a bit messy, at least on my part. And I also had I forgot to check which person it was, but I had an incident into turn 1 where I accidentally pushed someone. It was a relatively mild hit. I'm not sure if they got damaged. I don't think I ended up taking any damage. It was just braking a bit earlier than I expected. So that when you're already kind of in a negative headspace and that happens, then it just starts falling away unless you can clear it. And today, again, just to dig into the book of excuses, I just started physical therapy again. One of the reasons why I was gone last round is because of an ongoing medical issue, and I'm quite beat today after having been whipped by a physical therapist. So I didn't really have all that much capacity to go on, and the race took the rest out of me.
Well, it's absolutely fair. And the fact that whilst some would laugh at the book of the excuses, the fact that you've been able to make it onto the grid despite that, and despite perhaps some challenges with health and whatnot, it's so great to see you still putting it together and being able to turn up and give it a go. So we're very grateful for that. And in the sprint race, finish inside the top 5, some good points, and also a chance then to start on the second row of the grid for the feature, starting 3rd. It looked a bit of a chaotic start of the race, however, because we did see your pole sitter, Glenn Gondoliers, get escorted off the road at turn number 2, and suddenly you're leading in the silver class.
Yeah, that was quite unexpected. Not gonna lie. But I realized quickly, because when I saw which position I finished the sprint race in and realized I was going to be towards the front, I just, like, my mind was already set on I'll just try and hang on, and if anyone's faster, I'll just do my best to not be in their way, because I know I lack pace. But then I ended up actually having pretty decent pace, all things considered, and managing to somewhat hold on. But inconsistency has meant that I would, whenever I was close enough to do anything, then I would just do a mistake and lose all the gap that I've gained. But it looked like I was pretty quick up until the hairpin, and or maybe all the way to Aqua Minerale. But from there on, I am significantly slower than probably most of the other people on grid. So whatever I could gain early on, I would then lose towards the end. So I never had the chance to move forward, and then I had the technical issue with some USB device that kept disconnecting, and I got clock smashed. So I didn't continue driving while my screen was frozen. I was locked in place, and I lost I think it was about 15 seconds over 2 laps trying to figure out which device it was. So I just started unplugging all the cables that I knew wasn't directly connected to anything I needed to drive until it resolved itself. But so that thing is never coming back into the PC.
Well, fair play. I mean, to be fair, I've learned something new today, which is what a clock smash is on iRacing, and I appreciate you breaking this down for us, because it's unfortunate you did lose all that time and the places, because it looks like it was really heated up in the fight for a potential podium. But still, 4th place in class, some very good points there. And in the end, the one thing you always have a habit of being able to deliver is the consistency. We've talked about it previously, and getting the points home. You've definitely built yourself a very comfortable foundation for your championship campaign. But with 4 rounds to go now, how are you feeling for the rounds that remain?
Somewhat mixed, honestly. I genuinely do not think I'm in the running for anything, unless someone is unlucky, because the pace is so strong on everyone, and I know it's very tight up towards the front going into this round. I don't know what the points will look towards the end of it yet. But I mean, there are some good tracks left. Daytona's weird for me next round, because sometimes I do good, sometimes I only do mediocre. if I can find pace, I can have pretty good pace. But the rest should be okay, apart from Adelaide, which I've never driven. So if I can keep the consistency up, I can just hope that other people do mistakes and see where that brings me in the end.
Oh, indeed. You never know where you could end up, to be fair. If you can keep it consistent, like you say, you could definitely be on course for a top 3, if not of an outside chance of the trophy. But just as we get ready to let you go, Krista, as always, we have to ask, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a thank you to on the broadcast tonight?
Well, always yourself. You're always a pleasure to listen to, even if I have to go back and watch the replay of the race. And I always enjoy these small chats. And then, everyone else it looked very civilized on track today, I think. There will always be some minor incidents, but I don't think anything major happened. Not anything that I saw. So maybe just like a general shout out to everyone for having a good race and a good time.
Oh, fair play, Krista. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you join me in the interim, and thank you for joining me this evening. I do appreciate it. It's been a bit of a challenging one, but still, you've risen to most of the challenges here today at Imola, and we'd absolutely love to see it, and we look forward to seeing you back at Daytona, hopefully for a more straightforward day in the US of A, but we'll find out then. But until then, my friend, have a lovely rest of your evening.
You too, Paul.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Krista Halsoy, and well, what a day it's been for him. And indeed, he's taught us a few things here today in the Conto booth, particularly what is a clock smash. And there we find out, essentially, ladies and gentlemen, it's where your iRacing client goes out of sync with the iRacing server, and therefore your car is held in place. You have to catch up to the actual race that the server is managing. That cost Chris Dalsoy 15 seconds. That really scuppered what could have been the chance of a podium finish in what was race number 2 in the feature race. But talking throughout the day, much like Ollie Pimley's observations, that in the qualifying session the pace wasn't there. The circuit didn't seem to want to give pace to anybody, whereas in the races it was a much happier circuit to drive on. In the sprint, a very back and forth race compared to some of his peers, but he was able to deliver a key result. Meanwhile, in the feature race, what we got to see was in the end a very solid start, and when he took the lead early on after what happened to Glenn Gondoliers, well, after that it was all about just seeing how long he could hold on, but admitting there the fact that the second half of the lap was where he was weak compared to the first half of the lap where he did have good pace to match his rivals. And whilst he may rule himself out for the Silver Crown this season, well, he definitely has one of the more consistent points hauls inside the top 10 of the Silver Championship, so you never know. It could be a top 3 this season for him. But Daytona's up next, and well, he's looking forward to seeing what he can do there. But with that, we've got one more interview to come, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back very shortly for a final interview of the evening. And so, ladies and gentlemen, well, we come back to our interview in a brief moment. We've got a slight technical issue we are just resolving, I think. Do apologise. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we do apologise for that brief technical glitch. We are now joined by a final interview of the evening. It is none other than your back-to-back race winner today of Kim Andre Bjørklund from Sim Racing Norway. Kim, what a day for yourself. A perfect score of 40. Not quite perfection with regards to qualifying, but you got all the points. You must be happy with this one.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I missed Oscar today, but I tried to take as much points as I could when he wasn't here, so it went according to plan.
Well, indeed, Oscar Berntsson, unfortunately not on the grid. He's missed this round due to personal circumstances, but he's been tuning in, as I understand it, and ruined the opportunity to be able to go battling with you. But you still have plenty of drivers to battle with. Let's talk about qualifying. You were on pole for most of it, and then Josh Boo, at the very last moment, beats you to pole position by just over 300. Were you surprised?
No, I knew he had the pace to do it, and I had a bit more in store too, but I kept messing up the first chicane. all laps except for the first one, so it wasn't to be today.
Or indeed, wasn't quite to be, but still, second place start, and very quickly we saw you go on a mission to try and take that lead. And, well, it does seem as though you're quite comfortable with this Imola circuit, and race 1 showed that, because I believe it was into the lead come the end of the first lap, and you never looked back.
Yeah, I got a really good launch off the line and just kept my line into the first chicane, and from there I just controlled tire temps and had the fastest lap at the end, I think, so it was pretty good.
Or indeed, I mean, it wasn't just a fastest lap, it was a 41.6 right at the end, whereas everyone else was lapping in the 42s and the 43s. I mean, they say save the best for last, but in your instance, you really did save the best for last. Did that feel like the lap you should have done in qualifying, perhaps?
More or less. I got to relax a bit more in the race, so I tend to over pushing in qualifying. I don't know why. I always done it, and I need to practice more in qualifying.
Well, that's absolutely fair. Well, going from our sprint to our feature race, a 10th place start, but in the feature, an instant for the leader right at the start meant one driver was already clear, but you very quickly picked your way through the field. Just take us through that, because it looked as though this Imola circuit, whilst it can be difficult to overtake at, you didn't waste any time making moves.
I started with having a decent launch again, so I was alongside both the cars ahead of me before turn 1, and then the crash happened in front of me, so one freebie there. After that, it was just putting on some pressure and just pass them, and I get a good opportunity.
Or indeed, making the most of those opportunities. Although one driver who didn't want to let you through no matter what was Josh Boot. You enjoyed quite a bit of a battle with him until you finally found your way through. I mean, obviously, we've seen a lot of battling between yourself and Oscar Berntsson, but Josh does seem to be one of those drivers who also wants to try and get involved.
Yeah, he's fast and he's fair and he's tough to pass. I also didn't want to fight that hard because Mats would have catched up to us, so I wanted Josh in second if I could pass him because of more points difference between me and Mats. But then he spun, so unfortunately.
Oh dear, it was a bit of an unfortunate end to the race for Josh, but for yourself, the maximum points that you can take from around the big 40, and when it does mean now, when we head to Daytona in a week's time, there's going to be perhaps another great opportunity for you to take the full 40 there with Oscar Berntsson, unfortunately not able to be on the grid in the US of A. Are you expecting it to be easy there, or are you expecting there's going to still be good competition from the field?
Daytona is a whole nother beast. There will be a lot of drafting and bump drafting, and we'll just have to take the opportunities that comes our way.
All fair play. We look forward to seeing whether you can take those opportunities in a week's time and secure another win or two. But just as I get ready to let you go, Kim, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
I want to shout out to you and to Race by Wire, and of course my team Sim Racing Norway.
Well, Kim, thank you for joining me in the interview room. It's been a pleasure as always, and congratulations on the perfect pair of wins today. You couldn't have asked for a better pair of results, and we look forward to seeing whether you can repeat that at Daytona. But until then, and in preparation for getting ready to conquer a whole new different beast, we wish you a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of the day, Kim Andre Bjørklund, the gold class driver for Sim Racing Norway, and what a day it has been from him today. Not quite taking pole position, but was he surprised? Not necessarily, because of how quick Josh was and the fact that he did feel as though there was still a bit left on the table, but it was by a slender margin. And well, in race number 1, he wasted no time, and one of the big themes, you probably heard him repeat it twice there in both races, getting a very good launch compared to his rivals. And in race 1, it meant he was leading very early on in the race because he was able to win in the run down towards turn number 2, and in the feature race as well, able to make up 2 places before he got to the first braking zone. And well, that's been one of the key things of the successes that we've seen from Kim Andre Bjørklund and also Oscar Berntsson. Both of them are very quick starters. And of course, our Sim Racing Norway driver today as well, whilst in the sprint he was able to run away with it, in the feature he had to fight his way through. But he did find stiff competition from Josh over the remainder of the distance, and in the end, he managed to find a way past. And unfortunately, as he mentioned there, that Josh's mistake at the auto chicane meant that Matt Strand was able to finish the runner-up in the race in the gold class, and that's not what he was expecting or hoping for. It did mean, of course, that Strand has not been gapped as much as Kim Andre would like him to have been. But still, there's another 4 rounds to go. Next up is Daytona. And, well, with the amount of slipstream that's on offer there, our Sim Racing Norway driver commenting on the fact that he can't compare Imola with Daytona because it's going to be a very different story. And we'll see if he's going to be able to deal with what the slipstream entails. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all our interviews complete. It's time for us to wrap up. And thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed these interviews, here is a repeat of all your interviewees, because as we can see, it was Richard Simnoff, first and foremost, who we spoke to in the gold class of DCW Racing Blue. And well, what a day it's been from him today, in the fact those double podiums there and really taking his best results of the season across the board. Ollie Pimley then joined us in the silver class of Ghost Squadron Esports. And well, great to hear from him, returning to the podium after a long hiatus from it. It has been the best part of what has been 4 rounds since we last saw him on the podium in Brazil. Then we came to Krista Halzoya for Tractics Racing in the silver class. Back-to-back top 5s today in silver, both 8th places overall, but a very odd way of going about it, and it didn't quite work out, with plenty of issues plaguing him over the course of the day. And then we just heard from your gold class driver and back-to-back winner here today, Sim Racing Norway's Kim Andre Bjørklund, who absolutely delivered. Was a little bit upset not to see Oscar Berntsson here, but understandably the fact that in the absence of his main championship rival, he then had to go full attack mode and make sure he didn't lose any points, and did it absolutely perfectly. So a huge thank you to our interviewees. As always, ladies and gentlemen, it's always great to hear from drivers up and down the field, and we look forward to plenty more at Daytona in a week's time. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for tuning in, and if you have been here today thinking to yourself, you know what, I want to be on the grid for either the remainder of the season or a future season of the Race by Wire Porsche Cup, well, if you do want to be on the grid, all you need to do is join the official Discord first and foremost. Invite link available on screen there, because that's the beating heart of the community. And if you do join the Race by Wire Discord, well, you'll be able to get in touch with all the drivers up and down the grid and also announce your intentions to go racing with us. And there's never been a better time to be on the grid at Race by Wire as we continue to grow as 2026 goes on. Now, we'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series sponsor, and that is Energise Virtual Solutions. And Energise Virtual Solutions, or EVS, is a software consultancy whose aim is to meet the demands of bespoke product, services and development. Whether it's a completely new project or consultancy assistance on existing projects, Energise Virtual Solutions will be working alongside you every step of the way. If you'd like to know more about them, do head to energisevirtual.com. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now turn our attentions to round number 7, and in a week's time, on Wednesday the 11th of February 2026, it'll be to the US state of Florida, and it will be to the one place who no one's championship campaign can be considered complete without a win at the Daytona International Speedway. But as they take to its road course, they'll know they'll need to be smart with the drives as well as brave on the brakes into the hairpins and the bus stop chicane. But who exactly will find the balancing act and be able to lead the way? We'll come tune in next time to find out how the story continues across our gold and silver classes, where in gold, of course, it's going to be Oscar Berntsson who's absent, and Kim Andre Bjørklund has to try and run away as much as he can. And meanwhile, in the silver class, it's still anybody's guess who'll be leading, but some would suspect that Emery Ryu now may be finally taking the championship lead for the first time. But we'll see you there next time, and until then, we've been Raced by Wire. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.